Sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester, an Odyssey sports station.
It's time to start the show and talk about the sports we saw. Inside jokes and takes from Danger and Battaglia. Bills and the Sabres and the Amherst. Who gave a microphone to these jerks? Gene's a big timer, a social misfits. Clueless to the title of the biggest fuskeg hits. Chuck Munchie's goons have the last say. So thanks for your time, Mr. Mayo. Danger likes his cold ones and he likes his bears. But this is Rochester, cute Francesa.
Oh, who cares?
He's critical of Sean, he's critical of Alan. Of course he married Sandy, cause she's Italian. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. With Danger and Battaglia.
How are we feeling? How are the vibes? Vibes good going into the weekend? Good vibes?
Yeah, let's just start here because we'll get to all the Bills stuff and certainly college football. But our hockey team is on a 5-game winning streak. We're told they're pushing 9,000 for tonight.
How many?
9,000.
9 times.
Dude, this is like something you would get during a playoff run.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what's the reason for? I mean, it's awesome, but
I
that's
have
great.
I have multiple thoughts. I think one, your team is on a heater and they're exciting and they're young and they're a lot of guys that you're starting to build loyalty around, guys like Roseanne and Kulik and Jobst and guys that are in Hauser and guys that have been with the organization now a while. So it's exciting to see what they've done here now, winning 5 straight. And I think also you can't discount we're going into a holiday weekend that I think is long overdue. I mean, Veterans Day should have been considered a federal holiday, and companies should have off from work, kids should have off from school. We can never ever do enough to thank those that served for our country, and I think that adds a lot to it as well. That you have this. I'm going to go to the Sabres game on Monday, which I would normally not consider doing, but of course it's a matinee and girls off from school, and let's go have some fun. Why not? So you go into a extended weekend here, and you kind of think to yourself, well, we can have a little bit of fun. Let's have a little bit of fun. Let's go to an Amherst game because you got Hartford in town. It'll be a good competitive game, and let's see if the Amherst can continue to win. You'll hear that game here on the Fan Rochester with the puck drop just after 7 o'clock tonight. Now, I was actually going to ask about the vibes because if you watched last night's game between the Ravens and the Bengals, and you play fantasy football. My favorite thing about fantasy football, and by favorite I mean my least favorite, I love when a player absolutely goes berserk on a Thursday night and just ruins the rest of the weekend for you. Now, you're not feeling that if you have Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, or Lamar Jackson on your roster. In fact, you're feeling pretty good. I want to know the guy that's going to lose in fantasy football if you have any of those guys on your roster. What exactly did you do to screw up Lamar, Jamar, and Joe Burrow being on your roster going into? Because it's absolutely I looked at one of my matchups. I'm like, oh, God, I am dead.
Well, what makes this different since you and I started playing fantasy football, most people, now they have the little percentage, right? Most of the websites will do this.
It's demoralizing.
Yeah, you got a 30% chance now. It's 50-50, but yeah. Look at all these points from Chase. Yeah,
I can't remember. I think it might have been down to 12 in one of my leagues. You have no chance. So why even log in this weekend? Well, we'll tell you that. Oh my God. Yeah, I'm down 76 to nothing in one of my leagues. 76 to nothing.
It's not the playoffs.
I have a 12% chance. 12 going into the actual action on Sunday. Thank you, Lamar. Thank you, Mark Andrews. Thank you, Chase Brown. I didn't even get Jamar Chased. I didn't get Jamar Chased. Those are the 3 players that I have to thank for me being in a 76 to nothing hole going into this weekend's action.
I can thank myself for not playing the Bengal defense last night,
right.
too. What happened to those guys? Fantastic game last
night.
Oh,
so good.
Yeah, and okay, so Baltimore's still hanging around. They're not going to go anywhere. A lot of love for Lamar on the MVP, as he should. There it is on prime time. And that is the thing you got to take away. You can't beat the Ravens at night at home for whatever reason. But if you were listening to the Sports Bar yesterday, we said, too many points.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
hopefully you cashed in.
Yeah, I cashed in on a couple of things last night, and there were a few things where I saw them like, that looks like value. I took the over 90 yards prop for Jamar Chase at plus money and cashed that, and also took took the Bengals and the points, and that felt pretty good too. So yeah, there was money to be made. There were a lot of points being scored, and when you watch that game, and if you're watching it through the lens of a Bills fan, you got to be wondering like, oh God, how are we going to look against either of those teams if either of them end up being a matchup in the postseason for the Buffalo Bills? It's going to be tough. I mean, there's a lot can happen between now and then, but doesn't it look like they play just a more physical?
No.
You don't think so?
Dude, next time the Bills play the Ravens, they will have Amari Cooper. They will have a fully healthy Khalil Shakir for the game. Like, the Ravens can't stop anybody through the air.
That's true.
That is true. Like, you see physical brand, Cincinnati's defense sucks. It really does. That is going to be the undoing. They have 6 losses now. Well, how many more can they afford?
Yeah,
One more.
Well, they might not be a postseason team after all. It might end up being the Ravens and or the Steelers coming out of the North.
To your point, how do you defend against the Ravens? And the Ravens, if they come to Buffalo, it just seems like that 1-2 punch if both are healthy, and now you get Zay Flowers in there. They didn't even use Deontay Johnson last night. He was just out there for a couple rounds.
I think they doghoused him. I think a couple of the new trade deadline acquisitions on both sides of the ball got dog. I think you saw Khalil Herbert get one touch, drop the ball on his first handoff as a Bengal, and he didn't see the field the rest of the night. And Deontay Johnson, Lamar was pissed at the end of the first half. Wanted Johnson to get out of bounds, couldn't get him out of bounds. Johnson doesn't get out of bounds, and he doesn't get a target the rest of the night. So I thought that they doghoused both of those guys, both of the new trade acquisitions. And it's like, if you're Lamar, if you're Joe Burrow, it's like, fine. You're like Thanos up there. You snap your fingers, like, fine, I'll do it myself. And both of those guys just took over the game. Jamar Chase, I mean, I was watching the game with my daughter, and she was laughing at me because I kept saying it over and over. I'm like, God, he's good. God, he's good.
So why didn't they take care of him?
It's ridiculous.
Why didn't
they should pay him now because it's not going to get any cheaper. The guy is amazing. He is so – I mean, the touchdown grab at the end of the game is remarkable. It's the rap that he has with Burrow, his ability to get that separation, to make unbelievable catches, to use his speed – again, to bring it back to fan, if you have him on your fantasy team, you don't need me to tell you. I mean, the guy just absolutely went off for over 200 yards and what was it, 3 touchdowns, I want to say?
Yeah, he single-handedly beat your fantasy team.
Yes. He's so good. So good. And to Lamar's credit, I mean, it was a sleepy first half, but when they woke up, and he looks tough. He looks tough to beat. Maybe that changes in the postseason. We've seen him struggle, and we've seen teams throw things at him that he can't come up with. But if you're a Chiefs fan, you're breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief because as of right now, the Patrick Mahomes' kryptonite, the Chiefs' kryptonite, has been Joe Burrow in the postseason. He's the only active quarterback that's been able to beat Patrick Mahomes in the postseason, and so the chances of them meeting up in the postseason become slimmer and slimmer with that loss last night. But overall, just a wildly entertaining game, which we normally don't get on Thursday night. And, kind of wanted Al to be a little bit more into it, a little bit more excited. But
Well,
it was still a good Amazon did a decent job. A good presentation. It was a fun night.
Yeah, and he did get a little grouchy at the end because there's a bunch of penalties there in that last sequence going for 2 for Cincinnati.
He's not wrong, by the way.
No, you got to have something better here. Like, how is it so difficult not to call these things? I don't know sometimes what they're looking at. So where we're the show danger that doesn't like to point and blame the officials why your team lost. On the other hand, how do they make this better? I mean, that's
right. I mean, if you don't want it to come down to it, then come up with a stop instead of giving up a 2-score lead in the second half if you're the Bengals. But a blown call is a blown call, and they had 2 blown calls on that 2-point conversion attempt there at the end. And the name that will always make me angry is Clete Blakeman. Whenever I see or hear the name Clete Blakeman, I'm like, oh, God, not him. I know Bills fans have Jerome Boger, I believe, is the guy that Bills
Jerome Boger. Gosh, all the names over the years.
Yeah.
Jeff Triplett.
Well, Clete he's overstayed his welcome. It's time for Clete to be put out to pasture. This is obscene. I feel like every game that he officiates, they take over when they want to take over, and they put their hands in their pockets and don't blow the whistle when they need to, or throw the flag when they need to. It's bad, and the NFL does. I mean, when you have all the technology they have, you have Skycam, you have all the stuff that you have, you're able to replay assist is able to determine right away, that's a catch, that's not a catch, he's inbounds, he's not inbounds. Get the penalties right. Get them right. Now, you could call holding on every play. We know that. But when it's something like a blow to the head or a face mask, like we've seen now for 2 consecutive Thursdays, blown face mask calls at the end of the game, you got to get it right. You just got to get it right. And look, if you're a Bengals fan and you're complaining about the officiating today, I'm not listening to that, but I will listen to anybody just making the observation that they blew those calls.
Mm-hmm.
They blew those calls, and they got to get it right. The NFL has an issue with their officiating, and that's nothing new. That's kind of why I think they almost relish in the attention that they get, even though it's not positive attention. We'll talk some more fantasy football later on this hour. Andy Behrens from Yahoo Fantasy. In fact, I think that's where we start with Andy. Like, Andy, if you're going up against Jamar Chase, do we just not log on this weekend? Do we make sure? What's your advice for anybody? I want to know the guy that actually beats the team that has Jamar Chase, or the team that has.
It'll happen.
Yeah.
Trust me, this has happened in our fantasy football lives, has it not? Like, oh my gosh, I have no chance. And then you come back, or conversely, you're way ahead on a Thursday night and somehow you end up losing it. You're going to have to wait till Monday night until it's all said and done. I want to ask Andy about Christian McCaffrey. He's going. Can we just plug him in? I would assume you're not waiting to see what he looks like.
Right.
It's like, here we go here.
Yeah.
But how does that impact the rest of the offense?
Yeah, I think that's worthy of discussion as well. We've got some injuries to deal with. We love talking to Andy Behrens after a week hiatus, joining us here again this afternoon, 3:25. We'll get all caught up and get your lineup set for Week 10 in the NFL. And speaking of this weekend's action, plenty of action in college and pro football that we're going to be discussing this afternoon with our buddy Thor Nystrom. He is the NFL draft analyst and a college football expert at Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life, doing great work there at Fantasy Life with Matthew Berry. Thor joins us at 4:25.
Yeah, Thor, we'll ask him about some of these matchups. And what's cool about the playoff is, all right, these feel like early playoff games. Alabama, LSU.
Right.
That is a playoff game.
Loser's probably out, right?
Yeah, Georgia's not out if they lose to Ole Miss, but Ole Miss is going to be out if they lose to Georgia, and that's a tall order. So some of these games from the SEC. What about Indiana? It was interesting yesterday talking to our guy Jake Arthur from the Locked On Colts. It's what's going on with the Colt fan base? He's like, well, part of it is so many people are into Notre Dame and Indiana. This is a year where in that state, college football really is kind of rising above the NFL. So how is that going to impact the Bills game? Is this going to be just kind of a lackluster kind of crowd there coming in, knowing that, all right, we got Joe Flacco and this really isn't a good team? But want to ask Thor about Indiana Hoosiers football, because at 10-0, are we talking about the Hoosiers as national how did this happen?
Right. Yeah. Well, we'll get into it with Thor. And by the way, since the Bills are playing the Colts, I want to get Thor's take. I mean, Thor is a draft expert, and he spent a lot of time scouting the talents of Anthony Richardson. Let's get Thor's take on what the Colts have done here with what they thought was their future quarterback, their franchise quarterback. He'll join us at 4:25. We appreciate you checking us out on the stream at The Fan Rochester, our YouTube channel, The Fan Rochester on YouTube, and, of course, streaming on Twitch at The Fan Rochester as well. You can pull up a stool and join us at 866-4326. That's 866-4FAN. Reach out to us on Elon's Twitter at The Fan Rochester. And also, you hear us where we sound our best, the free-to-download Odyssey app.
We'll get to the Bills news here in just a second. You pointed this tweet out. Is Wyshynski being cheeky, or is he being serious? Remember tonight when the Sabres win the Cup.
I think he's being cheeky. I think.
Why would you do that to this fan base?
Well,
though?
because you know, if you're a national reporter, that you can toy with Buffalo fans. whether you're the Bills or the Sabres. I mean, Nick Wright knows what he's doing because he's from Syracuse and he knows the area and he knows the fan base, and he knows if he can say some things and needle a fan base, it will get you engagement. You'll get engagement from it. You'll get clicks. And shame on me. I engaged in it. I saw it. I laughed, and I'm like, settle down, Wyshynski. But I get what he's doing, and I see what he's doing. And, hey.
I didn't recognize that team last night, honestly.
And look at this. When you look at their schedule here, the Sabres schedule sets up really nice for them to go on a little bit of a run. So I'm not overly enthusiastic. I mean, it was a great win. You go into Madison Square Garden, you beat what you would consider to be a better opponent in the New York Rangers, and you beat them soundly. Every starting forward for the Sabres last night collected a point.
Only the second time in franchise history that's happened.
It's
all
amazing.
12. In fact, take it a step further. They would have done that in one period. Second period, 11 of the 12 guys got on the stat sheet. Peterka, who, by the way, got his point on a goal earlier, goal disallowed.
Yeah.
So he was the only guy that didn't get a point, only forward in that second period that didn't get a point. It's just a remark. The whole end of the ice, it was on one side in that second period. I'm like, what am I watching? This is Shesterkin. They just chased Shesterkin out of the game.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it's hockey. It's like baseball.
A lot of variance.
Yeah, like the White Sox beat the Yankees one night. The puck will go somewhere ways, but you can see what this team is capable of. And this is why it's so maddening, Danger. We've seen this from time to time.
Yeah, sure. I'm going to remember, if it does end up being some sort of a streak, I'm going to remember, or if we get to talking about this team in the month of January and February, and they get through the holidays, and they're in some sort of positioning, some sort of playoff positioning, I'm going to remember this week, because this was the week where Lindy Ruff said, we're gonna scratch Samuelson. We're going to scratch Yogi Haru. We're going to scratch a couple of guys. One guy who's making a lot of money on the blue line. Another guy who's a vet who's been with this team and been in this league for a long time. And we're gonna raise the expectation of play. We're going to raise what we expect out of you. I mean, if you're a pro, that's humbling, right? So the rebound and the reaction to that, and maybe guys are sitting up a little bit more straight now for Lindy. It'll be worth monitoring here. I think this next stretch of games, when you look at the way the schedule lays out, it's favorable for the Sabres to go on a bit of a streak here, a bit of a run. And if they do that, maybe, I'm not saying get excited or over the moon, but, just kind of start to take a little bit of a side glance at what Buffalo is doing there in the NHL, because last night was something. Last night was like, beating the Rangers the way they did is not a zero. That was a big win.
So now we're paying attention.
Right.
Still football season.
It is still football season. And the Buffalo Bills take on the Indianapolis Colts Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock, a game that you'll hear proudly on the Fan Rochester, your home for Buffalo Bills football. Our pregame coverage gets underway at 9 o'clock. We learned today that Keon Coleman will be officially out against the Colts.
And the way Sean McDermott is talking about this injury being multiple weeks, he's not putting him on. They're not putting him on IR. So it's not 100% that he's not available for the Chiefs. But when they're couching it like this, Danger, certainly sounds like we're going to have to wait until December to see Coleman again.
I don't believe so. It has been a conversation. We're trying to, when we talk to the docs, and this is where we get the information from, is say, hey, how long exactly? And there's, like anything, a little bit of gray area on that, just because it's an injury, right? So it's probably going to be more than this week. It's probably going to be multiple weeks. I just don't know how far into the future it'll go.
So no IR designation, but it certainly doesn't sound like he's optimistic about Coleman coming back as soon as next week against the Chiefs.
Yeah, that's kind of a bummer. Amari Cooper officially listed as questionable. Cooper's questionable. Reggie Gilliam is questionable. And Balin Spector came up on the injury report today, so he also is questionable. But as we expected, good news about Christian Benford, fully a go. Everybody else should be fine.
Michael Pittman will be out for the Colts against the Bills as well. That's of note. Is they're going to be
that's big.
Yeah, without Joe Flacco will be without one of. Look, I don't know that Pittman is as good as DK Metcalf. I don't know that he's as good as Nico Collins. But for 3 times now in the past 6 weeks, the Bills will be facing a team for an entire game that doesn't have their top receiving option. So Pittman out on Sunday, Coleman out on Sunday. You got a couple of questionable tags there for some Bills stars as well.
Yeah, and who is now next man up? All right, well, they have Josh Downs, Alec Pierce, Adonai Mitchell. Remember him from Texas?
A.D. Mitchell, sure.
A.D. Mitchell's there. So, I mean, it's not Mo Alley Cox is the tight end.
Which, when we talked to Jake Arthur yesterday, he said tight ends have been invisible in this offense. They're just not targeting them. A.D. Mitchell is not progressing as quickly as you would want him to. He hasn't really been a factor yet this year. It really comes down to Downs, who I believe plays primarily in the slot, and Pierce is the over-the-top guy. So, as a defense that likes to keep everything in front of them and not give up anything over the top, I would struggle to see the pathway for the Colts to beat the Bills if they focus in defensively on Jonathan Taylor and stopping the Colts run game.
Well, you pointed out that cut from McDermott because he really doesn't give you anything interesting quite often, but he did when he was talking about defense and how it doesn't really prove beneficial to blitz. It's not really the way he wants to set up his defense. He would rather have front four. But when we say blitz, you automatically think, all right, I'm going to send the safety and go after the quarterback. But what about shoring up run blitzes I'm talking about? Like, what if you take some chances here, bringing the safety down just to make sure nobody's getting to the outside? I'm wondering if there's going to be just something a little bit different in that regard this week.
Yeah, well, look, I think McDermott, if we've learned anything, his defense has always been sound. We've had a game or two where it's like, oh, boy, you can say it's bend but don't break. And ultimately, I don't really care. If you're keeping your opponent off the scoreboard, that's all I really care about. You can give up as many yards as you want, as many yards per rushes as you want. If they're not scoring, you have a chance. And I know that simplifies everything, but that's kind of what McDermott's defense has always been, right? It's always been a defense that will give up some yards. Not necessarily big plays, but yards. Like, whoa, where did Achane come from? We knew he was good, but we didn't expect him to get 6 yards a carry against his Bills defense, yet he did. Yet you have games like the Seattle game where Kenneth Walker couldn't get anything going, and Seattle didn't really use him, right? I don't know what Indy's plan is for Jonathan Taylor, but I would guess that John McDermott's plan for Indy is to eliminate Jonathan Taylor.
The line did not change. It's still Buffalo giving 4, but the over-under went down. Went from 47.5 to 46.5, which, all right. You gave your pick this morning.
Yeah, 27-17. I think the Bills win and cover.
I'm going to get a little kitschy here and kind of go along those same lines, but I'm trying to I start with this. What are the Colts capable of? A couple scores. 31-10. Seems to be the popular score for the Bills this year, so I'll say they're going to get another 31-10
yeah,
win.
The Bills like to get their 30 points a game, don't they?
That would make it 4 in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And it hasn't been all these big blockbuster plays. Sure, the Ray Davis screen to the right side, but that's just it's a missed assignment and it's out the door. So really, sometimes that'll happen, but you really don't see Josh Allen 50 yards through the air. That hasn't been part of the equation at all.
That's right. Let's switch gears, talk some fantasy football. Our buddy Andy Behrens, Yahoo Fantasy, will get your Week 10 lineup set next on The Fan.
You're listening to the Sport Taglia 95.7 F.
Welcome back to We the Hobby. You know what time it is? A little something special today. Oh, Nick.
Is that a corn?
That ain't no corn.
What?
That's a super corn!
Oh, wow. Visit us at 23 Arlington Street in Rochester.
Sports Update.
It's hockey night tonight in the Flower City. The Amerks looking to make it 6 in a row as Hartford comes to town. Our coverage will begin at 7 here on the Sports Leader. To the Buffalo Bills, getting ready for the Colts. Wide receiver Keon Coleman is out for this game. Probably out multiple weeks, this according to head coach Sean McDermott. Questionable is wide receiver Amari Cooper.
Just taking it day by day, getting better as the days go by. Just got to get used to it. It's always frustrating when you're not able to play. I mean, that's what we do.
Do you play Cooper in fantasy? We'll ask the expert. Andy Barron's Yahoo Fantasy joining us next year in the Sports Bar. Bills Colts, our pregame coverage Sunday begins at 9 a.m. All right, T-Hockey tonight, 1 to 2 at Bentley. Syracuse football on the road tomorrow. They play at Boston College. Gene Battaglia in the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
The beer is cold and the wings are hot. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Getting your sports weekend underway. Actually, Week 10 in the NFL got underway last night. And Andy, I mentioned it earlier, Andy Barron, Yahoo Fantasy, joining us now in the Sports Bar. Nothing like going into the weekend knowing that you have a 12% chance of winning your fantasy football matchup because your opponent has, I don't know, Amari Cooper, not Amari Cooper, I'm sorry, Jamar Chase or Lamar Jackson or Joe Burrow. I mean, just an absolute scoring bonanza on Thursday Night Football last night. How are you, Andy?
I'm well. I gotta say, I hate those little sliders that tell you what your percent chance is to win.
Right.
Like that's just so, I don't know. That's unnecessary. We give you, I feel like at Yahoo we give you too much negative feedback. We do that a lot, right? Like immediately, we don't like your draft, and then we give you a grade. We don't, you already lost. We don't need to like tell you that you set a bad lineup or whatever. Like we give you. We're arguably giving too much feedback, and I'm afraid that little slider with your win probability is part of it. I'm actually I've got a little bit of Jamar Chase, so that's fun. I avoided him in all but one league last night, but that is really a situation where it's over for you. You're not coming back from a dude putting up 50 against you.
And it's not too often we get the debut here in Week 10 of, for most leagues, the number 1 overall pick, Christian McCaffrey. Is good. Nobody's going to bench him, right? But what should be the level of expectation for McCaffrey right out of the gate here?
I will say, first of all, that until he takes a carry or gets a target, I'm not going to 100% believe that he's playing because nobody has lied to us this year the way Kyle Shanahan has lied to us, right? Like McCaffrey was looking good for week 1, and then a few days later he's on the IR, and then a couple weeks later he's on a plane to Munich to look for, a miracle cure for his calf. So I don't know. Let's just make sure he actually plays. When he does, I gotta think, given the concerns about his health to this point, I gotta think that they are going to let Jordan Mason continue to see some early down carries. It would be silly to throw Christian McCaffrey, and I'm not saying they're going to do it. Although, they don't have the luxury of time, right? They're 4-4, so this is not like they're an 8-win team or something like that, and can just be planning for January. They do actually have to win games. But man, no part of me thinks that he's going to make it through the season if they go right back to last year's usage and he's out there 85% of the time and he's taken 25 touches. And Jordan Mason has been and listen, I don't even know Jordan Mason's health. He's been down a little bit in practice this week. He's been limited, he's been full, and he's got a shoulder issue. But he's been so good. He's been 5 yards per carry. He's been over 3 yards after contact per attempt. He's up near the top of the leaderboard in all the important underlying stats. Stylistically, he's a wonderful complement to McCaffrey, right? He's just that banger, that super physical runner who always ends a run with violence and punishment. I really like that guy. And I feel like, man, if they can't continue to find 8 to 10 carries for Mason alongside Christian McCaffrey, give McCaffrey all the receiving work. Those two can actually be on the field together too, right? Because McCaffrey's such a gifted receiver and route runner. So he's got to play. And what I would expect from McCaffrey initially is maybe 15 touches, and maybe they ramp him up slowly. and they know that they can get nearly McCaffrey level production on the ground from Mason. Mason can't do anything as a receiver. He's not particularly active there. So that's really McCaffrey's role. I got to think that it's going to be more like McCaffrey as the head of a committee instead of, a full every touch featured runner.
Andy, on the opposite side of that matchup, as somebody who has Baker Mayfield and somebody who, for whatever reason, it's probably my fault. I probably should have found a trade partner to get him off of my roster, but I keep missing on who to start at quarterback. I've got Goff, I've got Mayfield, and every week I play the matchup, and every week I get it wrong. And Mayfield, to me, very quietly is having a really, really good season, even without some of his top weapons. Is he matchup proof now? Is Mayfield an every week start for you?
Well, the short answer is no. And I would have said yes if he had the full complement of receivers, right? And as impressed as we all have been by Cade Otton, Cade Otton, the tight end in Tampa Bay, who's just been an absolute revelation over his last 3 games. It's 10 plus targets per game, 25 catches. He catches almost everything that comes his way. He's good after the catch. Like everything about Cade Otton, but without Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, there's just not very many quarterbacks who would be able to survive that situation. Baker's been great. And this is a couple years with the same, cast around him, and that is really helpful. So there's year-to-year continuity. He's really been awesome, but it's such a difference throwing to Sterling Shepard and a couple of young receivers versus throwing to future Hall of Famer Mike Evans and, a guy who was having an all-pro season in Godwin. So I don't think he's matchup proof. Although I also don't think that the Niners defense has been exactly as advertised. So you can play him this week. I'll feel better about him if we can be sure that Sterling Shepard is going to go. If we've got Shepard and we've got Cade Otton, I feel okay about it. Those backs are really good receivers as well. So, it's hard to say enough about how good Baker has been and how he's at the top of the leaderboards in passing touchdowns. He's been pretty efficient. He's been his usual frisky Baker Mayfield self. He's been a little bit more aggressive than you might like to see some of the time, right? Like he's thrown some needless interceptions, but that's just part of the profile. He's been impressive enough that I think you can start him most weeks, but you can't expect what you were getting in the first couple months of the season with this particular cast of receivers.
I'm talking to Andy Behrens, Yahoo Fantasy, the Bills and Colts. So, Andy, no Keon Coleman this week, and it sounds like no Keon Coleman for that matchup against the Chiefs. So they're not going to put him on IR, just not yet anyways. But this may say, all right, play Amari Cooper. He's questionable too, and as you heard in the soundbite there, he's really not giving you any indication here. So your thoughts on if Cooper is healthy, knowing that there is some target availability here, is he a must-play? And I'm also curious to get your thoughts here on what we're seeing out of Ray Davis, because, sure, this is still primarily Cook in the backfield, but Davis, that Monday night game against the Jets, and he went out the door last week for 63 yards. Is this somebody that, if you really needed a running back too, you should consider?
Yeah, I'll first say that I was listening pretty close to that sound with Amari Cooper, and he, sometimes a receiver will give you a very clear indication that despite the fact that they've been limited and they're questionable, that they're going to play, and we were missing that. I think we were. He didn't give us the full. Oh yeah, I'll be out there. I didn't hear that, so it's a concern. It's definitely a concern. Khalil Shakir's great. Dalton Kincaid's great. Although I will say, it shocked me when I looked at last week's box score and Dalton Kincaid had 10 targets, because that did not feel like a 10-target game. He felt invisible and he was targeted 10 times, and that's not great. Yeah. But there's a clear path for Shakir and Kincaid this week. I most efficient and effective receivers across the league. Doesn't get enough, really doesn't get enough credit. Man, Ray Davis is really fun too. I'm glad you threw his name out there. We were just talking about him on the Thursday edition of Fantasy Football Live a little bit. I just think he's one of those running backs who's clearly in an understudy role, and you can't, in most weeks you can't start a guy who's only getting 6 or 7 touches a week. I get it. But we already have, we don't have to speculate about what it looks like when Ray Davis gets a full workload, because he was so special against the Jets. So I think he's one of those guys who's in a category with Tyler Algier And I guess I'd put like Jalen Wright in that category. Just a couple guys around the league. Maybe, there's just not many. Maybe Blake Corum. Where like if something happens to the lead back, I know I've got a star. Like if anything happens to James Cook, I know that I'm just parking Ray Davis in my roster and he's never leaving, and I don't care about the matchup because I've already seen him beat a tough matchup. So I think the world of him. I also think he's kind of flexible, like flex worthy in a pinch. And we've got a bunch of weeks coming up with like 4 teams on bye. We've got some nightmare bye weeks coming up. So I think he's, if we're just getting him a half dozen touches each week, there is a decent chance that one of them is either downfield or one of them is going to be a situation where he creates for himself as he did last week.
Andy, we're at the point of the season where changes are afoot. The trade deadline came and went on Tuesday. We had the Saints get rid of their head coach. We saw Luke Getsy. Were you as surprised as I was that Luke Getsy got fired from the Raiders, Andy? Wow, I'm glad I was sitting down for that.
Absolutely stunning development. I've never seen it before. Not even a little bit surprised.
What I was going to ask is, with some of these changes at the trade deadline, with the changes happening with some of these teams, I'm worried about what this means for Alvin Kamara. Maybe I shouldn't be. We saw last night that the 2 trade deadline acquisitions had one opportunity to get it right, and when they didn't see the field for the rest of the night. So I'm curious if any of these guys that have moved around, any new faces in new places, or any of these new situations can kind of under the radar lead to some fantasy goodness for us.
I actually I wasn't excited in the least by Deontay Johnson going to the Ravens. Like it was obviously a great move for the Ravens, but it wasn't a clear path to a huge workload for Deontay, right? Like he had that in Carolina. They weren't going to be great targets, but they were going to be a ton of targets. And now, like the Ravens don't care who gets it done each week. Some weeks it's going to be Mark Andrews. Some weeks it's going to be Zay Flowers. The lucky thing is they gain 400 yards a week and they score 30 points. So it can be a lot of guys. But it wasn't an obviously great move for Deontay. I wouldn't read that much into the fact that he had so few responsibilities on Thursday night, because it was, you guys know this, like usually there's just not time to install a completely new game plan with completely new roles for everybody when you have a quick turnaround to a Thursday game, right? So oftentimes we see roughly the same receiver usage from a Sunday to a Thursday. So that wasn't going to, if that had been like the following Sunday or a Monday night game, something like that, then we might have really seen a, new and better usage for Deontay. But I just wouldn't read a whole lot into the fact that he wasn't that involved. I think a couple weeks from now, we're really going to see Deontay in a bigger role, because he is a very quick separator, and he's a good fit for this offense because he's a guy who just gets open off the snap of the football. He's going to be good down the road. So I think you can feel okay about him. Khalil Herbert is also somebody who, like, he'd just been there. He'd been there for like 2 days. He probably had one practice with the team. So I wouldn't sweat that one too much either, because he's gonna walk right into Zach Moss's role, which wasn't great, but it was 8 to 10 touches a game. I wouldn't expect more than that. Chase Brown has been awesome, and nobody's taken away Chase Brown's touches.
We're talking to Andy Barron's Yahoo Fantasy here. One of the games in the late window, and the Jets and Cardinals. What do we make Arizona? Not only just in this matchup, but you are looking ahead here in one of your recent articles talking about how this could be an offense you might want to target down the stretch.
They have a lot of friendly matchups, right? Like they get, some of the matchups in the division are extremely friendly. Seahawks are friendly. The Rams are friendly. They got a lot of good spots coming up on the schedule. I think Kyler Murray has played pretty well. Nobody was happy with him last week, but he didn't have to do anything. Like, I don't know. You saw that game. The Bears weren't really forcing him to throw. Yeah. And they got anything they wanted on the ground. So I think that's the story last week. I think he's played pretty well. And they're also they're a team with kind of a shaky defense too. So more often than not, they're going to have to keep up with what their defense is giving up. So there's just a bunch of good spots ahead for Trey McBride, for Kyler Murray. I think, when you're buying low in fantasy, you have to really go out and find very talented players who are actually not producing, not guys who, like, if the entire fantasy industry is telling you that somebody is a buy low, then that guy is definitely not a buy low, because whoever actually has him on a roster understands how well that person is playing. but it's been a little uneven for Kyler Murray, and I think he is somebody who has just like shockingly great dual threat talent. Like but next to Lamar Jackson and Jaden Daniels, I don't think there's a more exciting running quarterback. I think Josh Allen might be a little bit better, but I don't think there's a more exciting rushing quarterback than Kyler Murray. He's really fun. So I just think there's a lot and some of the biggest open questions about him and his ability to throw outside the numbers, deep downfield, hit Marvin Harrison on some of these plays. He's answered a lot of that stuff, and I think he's looked really good. So that is an offense, and that is a player that I'm pretty interested in.
We're being deprived of fantasy bonanza in the late window Sunday afternoon as well, with Dak Prescott being injured, the Eagles and the Cowboys, and now it feels like this might be a one-sided affair. My question's about CeeDee Lamb and how you proceed, knowing that it won't be Prescott behind center, Andy.
Yeah, it's a little rough. I think he's the one guy in Dallas who can survive. I don't expect Cooper Rush to keep multiple players fantasy relevant. I'd be a little bit worried about Jake Ferguson, Brandon Cooks when he comes back, but I think he can keep CeeDee Lamb roughly fantasy relevant. I don't think that you can, CeeDee Lamb's not going to be our number one receiver in any given week anymore. That's ended until Dak Prescott comes back. There's no chance of that. But top 10, sure. A couple years ago when we saw a lot of Cooper Rush, CeeDee Lamb had a couple of receiving scores from him. Like the weekly production was just fine. Oftentimes what happens when we get these backup quarterbacks and shakier quarterbacks who come in place of starters, they zero in on the best possible receiving option on the team, and they pepper him with targets. And I think that's what you're hoping for with Lamb. But of course, with Lamb, you also have to hope that his shoulder is no big deal because he was in a lot of pain last week too. It sounds like he's going to play through it. And then on top of that, you have to worry, if we get 4 weeks down the road and they still haven't won, and then they're really buried, like, I don't know, how hard are you going to ride CeeDee Lamb in a season where you probably don't even have Dak Prescott? So that's a concern as well.
We're talking to Andy Barron's Yahoo Fantasy. Never thought I'd be asking you, do I play him or not question about Panthers and Giants in Germany. But what Danger and I were kind of laughing like yesterday, like, wait a second, they gave Chuba Hubbard this money. He's top 10 paid at the position now, but is there a psychology maybe just for this week, Andy, that, hey, Jonathan Brooks, maybe he's playing, maybe he's not, but we have to justify the decision we made here. We're going to feed Hubbard the ball. Maybe Hubbard himself wants to let the world know, hey, after I got this money, I want to, provide big numbers for my team here.
Well, Hubbard's been great.
Yeah.
Like if they weren't going to trade him at the deadline with Jonathan Brooks coming back, he's a perfectly fine building block for that team. And man, like a backfield down the road in which Jonathan Brooks is your number one and Chuba Hubbard is the 1A, and they're both getting a dozen touches a week. I mean, that's pretty good. It's not going to be great for fantasy. Nobody wants to hear that, but that's a really good one too. And again, Chuba Hubbard's been fantastic. So I can't imagine that. Like I'm assuming that we're going to see a little bit of Jonathan Brooks this week, but I don't think it's going to be. I imagine it's going to be a cameo appearance, right? It's going to be a get your feet wet sort of situation. They're not going to ride him for multiple series in a row. I would imagine that it's Chuba Hubbard taking like 3 out of every 4 series, and you can definitely play him against the Giants. The other player that you got to ride in that game is Tyrone Tracy, by the way. That kid has been fantastic, like a real revelation. He played at Iowa for years as a wide receiver, went to Purdue, transitioned to the running back position, and he's been like inventive. He's been getting like something out of nothing in a way that Devin Singletary was not able to for them. So he's taken over that lead role. He's facing a defense that allows the most fantasy points to opposing running backs. So he's just in a great spot. And there's a pretty good chance that this is just like one of those games for Tyrone Tracy where a player just elevates himself to a different tier at the position. And we're thinking differently of Tracy after this week.
Andy, I like the matchup on Sunday night as well. I'm curious to see if anybody can stop Detroit. They've just been on an absolute heater. But the Texans at home feel like they might be a different team than what we've seen. At least maybe I'm reading into it. What are you seeing out of this matchup between the Texans and the Lions with an over-under of 49 going into Sunday night?
we got to get Nico Collins on the field. If Nico Collins is on the field, I feel like Houston can keep pace because that guy was playing as well as any receiver in the game. If he's not, I don't think Houston can hang with Detroit, and I don't think they can really hold them up either. I'm not sure there are many defenses in the league right now that are going to be able to severely limit Detroit. I mean, they're at the top of the league in terms of scoring offense. They're putting up nearly 400 yards a game. I mean, like, it's also as you saw in the Green Bay game, they also have an aspect to them that is going to play really, really well if they have to go into a road environment late in the season, January football. They just rode David Montgomery down the stretch, and they were like, hey, you're going to get David Montgomery between the tackles, and if you can stop him, well done. And you can't. You can't. Like, Jahmyr Gibbs is leading the all running backs in success rate right now at like 63.1%, I want to say, and David Montgomery is right behind him at 55.5%. Like, you just can't stop those two. And that, again, that's the kind of football that is going to play really, really well when we get deep into the postseason and perhaps in an outdoor uncomfortable weather environment. They're so good. And then, of course, Jared Goff, last 6 games, he's completing over 80% of his throws. That's just stupid. They're not always deep downfield, but man, good luck stopping Amon-Ra St. Brown, James Williams, Laporta when they occasionally throw it to him. Like, they got a lot of weapons, and they're hyper efficient right now. And I don't think there's a defense in the league right now that I would say, yes, they can definitely keep Detroit under 30. I mean, nobody's doing it.
May we suggest Fantasy Football Live? Andy and the team do a great job. Andy, tell everybody about it.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Sunday morning, an hour before kickoff, we're going to give you all the late actives, inactives, all the latest fantasy spin. We're going to have, some nonsensical debates. It's going to be a lot of fun.
We didn't get a chance to talk to you last week, Andy, but if we did, we would have said, well done on your Halloween costume. Andy Dalton never looked as good as Andy Behrens did portraying him.
I thought maybe Andy was, worried about, talking about what happened in Washington. Are we over that, gentlemen, yet?
No, we're not over that. It's funny. I've been doing this job so long that I realized that's the second time I've been Andy Dalton for Halloween. I was also like early career Cincinnati Andy Dalton, and then I ran it back with Panthers Dalton.
Very good. Andy, enjoy your weekend, man. Thank you for the time. Let's talk again next week.
Thanks, guys. Good luck, everyone.
Andy Behrens, Yahoo Fantasy Sports, our guest every Friday at this time to help set your weekly lineups in fantasy football. And I know, going into this weekend, if you're feeling good, if you have Jamar Chase, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, if you're going up against them, you're not feeling so good. You might actually take that time and go do some yard work or winterize your home. I don't know. But
no, you know how this works, right? Points are important. So don't punt on this week. Try to get as many points because you never know. How many times, oh my gosh, if I only had 20 more points, I would have made the postseason. So, yeah, optimize the damn lineup this week.
There you go. Andy Behrens joining us every week here on The Fan Rochester. We're going to take a break and come back with more next on The Fan, including Thor Nystrom, who's a college football and NFL draft analyst for Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life. And we'll talk about some of this weekend's more compelling college football matchups with Thor and ask him a little bit about Indianapolis's handling of Anthony Richardson since they took him 4th overall.
We are still in the middle of the 2024 season, but I'm going to make a prediction about the Bills' 2025 schedule. Like, already. Run this by you, Danger, my logic here.
Okay. I also have, we've been saying here in the Sports Bar that we're in the golden age of the Bills' reign in the AFC East. I also believe we've returned back to the future in many, many ways, and I'll explain why. Something that happened in the early 2000s that they said would never be seen again is actually happening almost exactly the same way in 2024. We'll get to that, and we'll get to Thor Nystrom all coming up here in the 4 o'clock hour. Your calls are welcome at 866-4FAN, 585-866-4326.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with
Welcome back to We the Hobby. You know what time it is? A little something special today. Oh, Nick.
Is that a corn?
That ain't no corn.
What?
That's a super corn!
Oh, wow.
Visit us at 23 Arlington Street in Rochester.
How to get that home improvement project done since 1957. Your next home improvement project, think outside the box and head on over to Debbie Supply, Commercial Street, East Rochester.
9BF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester, an Odyssey sports station. The Fan, Rochester, sports update.
Hockey night tonight in the Flower City. The Amherst hosting Hartford. Our coverage will begin at 7 o'clock here on the sports leader. We're told there's going to be a big crowd tonight. The Amherst approaching 9,000 tickets sold. Wide receiver Jalen Virgil has been promoted from the practice squad to the active 53 for the Buffalo Bills. One reason, well, wide receiver Keon Coleman is out for this game, probably out multiple weeks, according to head coach Sean McDermott. Also questionable for this game is Amari Cooper. Deion Dawkins is ready.
We understand what the objective is, and, we're going out there to dogfight. That's where we play best, in a mucky situation.
9 a.m. The pregame coverage begins this Sunday here on the Fan Rochester. RIT hockey tonight in Massachusetts. First at 2 at Bentley. Syracuse football tomorrow taking on Boston College out in Massachusetts. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Bills, Colts, 1 o'clock Sunday, live right here.
The Colts, they're not that bad. Also, there's one thing the Bills struggle with, their lack of ability to stop the run, and Jonathan Taylor has been one of the best running backs in the league. Their best defense will be keeping Josh Allen off the field by running the ball and trying to shorten this game.
I see the Bills probably pulling this one out like 24-16.
Mike Danger.
I'm not worried about the Colts.
No.
What?
27-17 Bills. If you want to be considered a contender in the AFC, you can't trip on the Colts. You can't. You just cannot.
Gene Battaglia.
This is a team the Bills can actually run on, and I'm not concerned that this will be the Joe Flacco, oh my gosh, he threw for 300 yards.
Right.
I think you and I are kind of in agreement. It seems like 4 points should be an easy cover for the Buffalo Bills in this game.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
I apologize if I'm a little distracted to start this hour. I just looked over at my keyboard over here, and it's moving. I'm like, what? What's going on? My keyboard was moving. No, I took care of it.
Oh, what do we have?
A little creepy. It wasn't a spider. It was some kind of insect that was just randomly on my keyboard. I'm like,
it is that time of year where everybody comes indoors, including critters, right?
I tell you what, I don't know how you feel in your house, Gino, but I am an absolute freaking superhero in my house, because anytime I hear a shriek of horror or terror, I know exactly what it is. Oh, you need me to kill a spider. Okay, yeah, I'll gladly do that.
I don't know why I have the same assignment, too. Like, oh my gosh, there's a spider up there. Okay. You see it.
There's a spider in my room. Well, kill it. Okay, fine. I'll kill it. And just like that, I look over at my camera. I'm like, oh, it's not a spider. It's some kind of insect. I'm not really sure what species it is. Let me dispatch of that here, because we got a show to do, man. It's potentially a long weekend for you, depending on what you're doing. I mean, like Veterans Day coming up on Monday. The kids have off from school.
Yeah, and the weather isn't going to be bad. I mean, we might get a little rain, so finish up the yard, watch some college football on Saturday, go to the Amherst game tonight. Before we get to the Bills here and our takes here, 9,000 tickets for the Amherst tonight. They're approaching sold.
9 times.
They started off today 8,500. So when you consider walk up and everything else tonight, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I didn't think we'd ever get to this point where, the regular season, we're going to see these crowds, too, that we saw for the postseason. But, you said it. It's a team that's very likable, and they're winning right now.
Yeah, 5 straight wins, going for 6 tonight against Hartford. A lot of guys that have returned, a lot of names that you're familiar. You're just getting familiar with some of these guys, and you kind of know what to expect. There starts to become a little bit of a bond, a little bit of a loyalty. And with Kulik back, I mean, that's somebody that we've seen kind of grow up as a Rochester American. So knowing that he's here, at least for the short term, is fun. And they're playing great hockey right now. You're getting a lot out of goaltending with Hauser, and you're getting wins. You got a really stout blue line, and you got some names that you're familiar with because they've been here for a while, and they're contributing to the success of the team. They go for 6 straight against Hartford. You'll hear that action at 7 o'clock tonight on the Fan Rochester. Last night on the Fan Rochester, I don't know, was everybody as shocked as we were that the Sabres did what they did to the New York Rangers?
Well, first of all, it starts with a Dahlin goal that was just a fluke. So, okay, he whiffed on it, beats Shesterkin almost like a changeup. Okay, great, you'll take it. When was the last time they had a second period? I can answer. There was a game in Columbus that was really fluky last year where they piled on all these goals. You had what should have been 5 goals in that second period and against arguably the best goaltender in the game today in Shesterkin. He gets chased. They put in Quinn. One of those goals was disallowed. This is going to be the bane of our existence because the Sabres at some point will have a game where wow, why isn't all this clicking? But you see what it could look like. There it is. Mm-hmm. There it is. That's why Kevin Adams paid some of these guys, and that's why you drafted some of these guys high. You did this at MSG against a Ranger team that's actually really good.
Yeah, I'm wondering what unlocked it last night, or if it was a function of the Rangers just being kind of peppered and being shell-shocked and not really knowing how to match the intensity of the Sabres.
It could be just the Rangers it's Buffalo. Oops.
Yeah,
they didn't show up. Yeah.
And if you can sneak up and catch a team sleeping on you, that's totally worth taking advantage of as well. But I'm going to remember this win later this season. I'm going to remember that the circumstances prior to the Ottawa game earlier this week as well, where Lindy Ruff did something that we don't see all that often. When you make a couple of your veteran guys, and one of them a very high-paid veteran guy in Samuelson, take a night off, you're a healthy scratch, to send a message. I don't know how much that resonated. I mean, you hear the players say, yeah, we hate it, but we're going to get better, and we're going to make our – everybody feels like they might be sitting up a little bit more straight since that happened.
Yeah, it gets us paying attention. Sabres Calgary tomorrow on CMF. That's because we have St. John Fisher football tomorrow, Danger.
Very good.
Yeah, at 12. But also, one note on the Bills here. We have a few with the injuries here. If the Bills win tomorrow to move to 8-2, the last time Buffalo started a season 8-2, 1992.
Yeah.
That was year 3 of the 4-year Super Bowl run.
Yeah. Lots to be excited about and encouraged about. And, if we have a theme this week, I mean, I've been saying it all week that if you want to be considered a serious contender for the Super Bowl, you don't go to Indianapolis and lose to the Colts.
No.
You just don't. And I know that the spread is a little bit fishy, the Bills being favored by only 4. But I think they handle their business. It's a business trip in Indianapolis, 27-17. And I might be generous there because I honestly, been saying this all week too, Colts feel like AFC Seattle to me. That a team that's just kind of inconsistent, that has weapons but doesn't really know how to utilize them.
And then when you face Seattle, you caught a little bit of a break. You didn't see DK Metcalf. You're not going to see the Colts' top wide receiver, Michael Pittman, is been already ruled out for this game. You look at that receiving core for Indianapolis, that is nothing that's going to scare you. Not with Joe Flacco, I'm sorry. Something's gone horribly wrong if Joe Flacco is going to light you up this week.
Correct. We'll have the game for you Sunday afternoon, 1 o'clock here on the Fan. Rochester, you're home for Buffalo Bills football.
So this Sunday marks the final game of the season overseas. Panthers and Giants in Munich. And I don't know, what do I want to watch? CBS the Sunday morning or... Yeah, I think I'll watch the NFL, even with that. There were a total of 5 games outside our borders. And look, for anybody that has a take, this is terrible, this is America, we should be having these games inside. I hear you, but understand this is how you actually make more money in the end because you get the product exposed overseas, and then they become fans too. It's going to go up next year. If you thought 5 was bad, NFL owners have already approved as many as 8 next year, and they've already named one new site here, being Madrid. We're going to go to Spain. So, Danger, if I might connect dots here, next year it's going to be the AFC getting to host the 9 games. And from what we've seen so far, with the exception of the Jaguars, right, it's the conference that has the 9 home games per year. It's the conference that has the 9
times
home games per year. Thank you. They get tapped to give one up. So if you're going to have, how many teams are in the AFC? 16. Okay. 8 games going to come from the AFC that are going to be, 8 teams are going to be asked to give up a game. Which of those stadiums don't make money right now, at least? I predict, I wouldn't be surprised if the Bills are one of those teams that are going overseas next season.
Yeah.
But listen, let's call it right now. Not London. We've done London. London's beautiful. I'm sure people will be excited about that. But Danger, let's do Madrid.
Yes.
Mike Danger can be our Sherpa. You can show us where the family came from, buddy.
Oh, dude, I'm telling you, we'll have Bill's Mafia over at my aunt's house. She'll cook us all paella. We'll eat like kings. We'll take siestas. We'll get up and party late into the wee hours of the morning, as they do in Madrid. We'll hit up the street fairs and the street festivals. It's beautiful. Yes, absolutely. Let's go. I wish I knew for sure whether or not there was going to be a game in Madrid with a rooting interest for me, because I'm going to go in 2025 back to Madrid.
Have you picked the date yet?
We're looking at June, unfortunately. So I don't know that I can pull off 2 Madrid trips in one.
It's for work.
It's a good point, Gino. It really is. It's a strong argument. I mean, if I have to, if I have to take a trip to Madrid to cover the Buffalo Bills, I mean, I guess. I guess. I was I was thinking that the Bills would have one less game in their final season at Highmark Stadium because they're afraid that I might crumble to the ground. So let's just not, let's cut our losses. For the safety of our fans, one less game is probably a good thing before we move into the new palace across the street.
Well, you know what? We're going to ask you for all this money on a PSL, but we're going to make your ticket price a little lower by not charging you for this game. Maybe.
Well, look, it's all fine and it's all good, and we've been saying it now for a while that we're in the golden age of the Bills' reign in the AFC East. They're going to win their 5th straight AFC East divisional title this season. And when you look at the trajectories of the Jets and the Dolphins and the Patriots, it's not unreasonable to believe that they're going to win more in the coming years, right? One thing we didn't mention or haven't mentioned as frequently is what we once thought was going to be impossible in the NFL has actually been replicated almost exactly. Welcome to 2006 in the NFL, because right now what you have at quarterback in 2024 is Patrick Mahomes playing the role of Tom Brady with his Super Bowl rings. Joe Burrow is the Drew Brees of 2006, just compiling massive numbers. Get Lamar Jackson aligned with Peyton Manning. You got the MVP awards and plenty of other accolades, probably more hardware to come. And this is the character that we're all pulling for. Playing the role of Phillip Rivers with nothing on the resume but playoff disappointment is Josh Allen. Now, all of that can change this season, but I'll repeat that if Allen and the Bills want to be taken seriously in the upper echelon of the NFL, you don't drop a game to Indy this weekend.
Could it happen? Of course it could happen. There's a lot in there, but the idea that the analogy to Phillip Rivers is a Hall of Famer, is he not?
Yeah.
Are we ready to say if Josh Allen continues to play, he's a Hall of Famer?
I mean, yes, I think so. I mean, he's putting up great stats. Yeah. I always say it's not the Hall of Great, it's the Hall of Fame. And Josh Allen is becoming one of the more famous, if not the most famous. He won't be more famous than Patrick Mahomes until he starts winning Super Bowls. But every time you see the guy on a national show, he's on McAfee. Mm-hmm. He's just answering right. He's playful. He's serious when he needs to be. He's funny when he needs to be. He's charismatic when he needs to be. He's everything you want in a franchise quarterback. The Bills absolutely nailed it when they got this guy. Except they can't get in, and he'll be the first to acknowledge it. We can't get over the hump. We're trying to get over the hump. We want to get over the hump this year. Hopefully this is the year that it happens.
I think if you had to kind of say which one it is, and maybe if this is my throwing this out there, Bills fans, it's not Phillip Rivers. It's another Hall of Fame quarterback, John Elway. Now, John Elway had to wait until the end of his career, and he lost a few Super Bowls in between. I don't know who the comp would be, like historically.
It's Phillip Rivers right now. I mean, because Rivers never made it to the Super Bowl.
Right, but we're only
as of right now.
As of right now.
I'm not saying it's never going to happen, and he can change the role here. He doesn't have to be aligned with Phillip Rivers in 2024 when we're looking back at the quarterbacks that we have now versus the quarterbacks we had in 2006. But I just remember that time, and I remember hearing it all the time. Like, we should not take any of this for granted because what we're seeing here is remarkable from these 4 quarters.
Well, just do the math here. Like, this year, if they did get to the Super Bowl, that would be the Peyton Manning timeline. Exactly. Peyton Manning, first year in 1998. He gets to the Super Bowl in 2006. In fact, he would beat him by a year. So I think maybe more Manning might be the way, because if all he would need would be one, we'd be satiated.
I'd say Roethlisberger. Even though Roethlisberger got into the Super Bowl early in his career, when he got there, he made the most of those opportunities, and maybe that's the comp that we hope for here down the run. I think we would take that, right? Just get us one. If you get us one, you don't have to worry about anything ever again.
This next story, there's no joking here. There's no Motley Crue or anything like this, okay? I'm just going to tell you a story out of Buffalo, which I wasn't aware of, but apparently there is a gentleman's club named Pharaohs where the owner and the whole club has been shut down, and there's some terrible, awful allegations when it comes to drugs and sex trafficking and everything else. No joking, right? So why am I bringing this up? Well, according to the report, the whales. We haven't heard the whales, the exact names yet, Danger, but when this goes to trial, these whales include prominent attorneys and former Buffalo Sabre players. I would just ask the question here, how many ex-Sabres call Western New York home here?
I think the ones that do are still working for the Buffalo Sabres.
Well, that's why I'm just kind of wondering, where is this story actually going to go?
Yeah, who are they going to unearth as far as the Buffalo Sabres?
I just think if this actually kind of just gets out there here a little bit.
Well,
I don't know, just something worth kind of monitoring.
We will monitor, and I think I just showed great restraint, Gino. You
I'd swear I'm like, wait a
I
second.
don't know any of the details of this story, but if you're telling me that they're graphic and it's not a good story, then we will not joke around.
No. This is one of those, like, I'll find some other reason to joke later in the show here, but when it comes to that stuff, I don't want to joke.
I'm not going to call from the DJ booth out to former Sabres captain Jack Eichel or anybody else. We're not going to do any of that. We're not going to mention 25-cent wing night.
No, but then again, I say this is a story worth monitoring, and then we had, like, the ring down at Charlotte with Thomas Vanek and others that were there, like, whatever came of that? Oh, well.
Right.
Yeah.
Good lawyers, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess that's what came of that. We'll get to Thor Nystrom next here on the Fan Rochester. Love our chats with Thor, man. This guy knows his college football prospects inside and out, knows college football betting inside and out. We encourage you to go check out his work. He's at ThorKU on X, and every week he puts out an article of his 10 best bets in college football if you want to make some money. Thor is going to lay some of those plays out for us here as we talk about. We got a good handful of games here on Saturday tomorrow that are just delicious for college football. We're talking Georgia, Ole Miss. We're talking Alabama, LSU. We're talking Oklahoma, Missouri, BYU, Utah, sneaky good. So we'll get Thor's take on all of those matchups. We'll talk a little bit about, how nice is it? We just got done talking about Josh Allen, the Bills nailing it, and getting their franchise quarterback and getting it right. If we didn't have Josh Allen, we would be talking about which quarterback would make the most sense for the Buffalo Bills to select when they're drafting in 2025 at this time of year.
Yeah, look, the year the Bills passed on one, we all thought, this isn't the class here, and out of that class came Patrick Mahomes. So you never know. But when the Bills had that class, we knew, okay, there's going to be some guys here that will help franchises. You see Lamar Jackson, you see Sam Darnold in another actor, and certainly Josh Allen, but what do you make of this year's class? I guess that's what we'll ask Thor here, because that doesn't seem to be a clear-cut, this is the guy that's going to help your franchise. Like last year, let's say. Last year you had Caleb Williams. Last year, even without Caleb Williams, okay, that Jaden Daniels is pretty good too.
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of people were high on Carson Beck going into the season, and I tell you, after watching a couple of games, early in the season, and first week of the season, I'm like, yeah, he looks like an NFL quarterback, but through the course of this season, he's made so many mistakes, so many bad throws and turnovers. I'm like, ugh, that's going to scare away some teams. Maybe it's correctable, but I think one of the guys that was up there at the top of the list early in the season has fallen down quite a bit. We'll get Thor's take on all of that as he joins us next. Thor Nystrom from Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life joining us next on the Fan Rochester.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger and the...
Welcome back to We the Hobby. You know what time it is? A little something special today. Oh, Nick. Is that a corn? That ain't no corn. What? That's a super corn! Oh, wow!
Visit us at 23 Arlington Street in Rochester.
Rochester Sports Update.
Bills wide receiver Jalen Virgil, he's been promoted from the practice squad. He's now on the active 53. One reason, well, we do know that wide receiver Keon Coleman is out for this game. He's probably going to be out multiple weeks, this according to head coach Sean McDermott. Questionable for the Colt game is wide receiver Amari Cooper.
Just taking it day by day, just getting better as the days go by. Just got to get used to it. It's always frustrating when you're not able to play. I mean, that's what we do.
9 a.m. pregame coverage begins on The Fan this Sunday. Hockey tonight in the Flower City. The Amherst hosting Hartford. Big crowd expected. Coverage begins at 7 o'clock here. RIT the first of 2 tonight at Bentley. Syracuse football tomorrow on the road. They play at Boston College. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester.
They've raised the bar on Rochester Sports Talk. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Welcome back into the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia joining us now from the land of 10,000 locks, our superhero of the spread. It's Thor Nystrom, who's doing great work over there with Matthew Barry at the Fantasy Life. Thor, it's good to have you on with us, buddy. Ready for another great weekend of college and pro football?
Absolutely, yeah. Always good to join you, boys.
Yeah, it's we're looking forward to having this playoff format for the first time, and already feels like we got some sort of quasi-playoff games. When I look at Georgia, Ole Miss, I'm not sure, Thor, if Ole Miss can afford another loss here. How do you view this matchup here, Georgia and Ole Miss?
Yeah, they definitely can. Ole Miss they need to win out to make the college football playoff, and this is a tough circumstance for them because Ole Miss is one of the more banged up teams in the Power Four. I was looking at their injury report this week, and it looked like a receipt you get at Menards or something with all the line items. It was one of the biggest ones I've ever seen in the SEC, a conference where you have to turn in injury reports, and they got injuries at running back, receiver. Their top guy Trey Harris doesn't look right now like he'll play. He's missed time. Looks like he'll miss another game. So they're going to be out offensive weapons. They have a bunch of injuries on defense as well. It's tough. Jackson Dart is going to have to be a one-man show here. So I mean, at least he has his Heisman opportunity. But yeah, like against that ridiculous Georgia front seven, you'd figure that could counteract that, and Georgia's offense should be able to just pound them. If Carson Beck can avoid mistakes, Carson Beck has been throwing interceptions in bunches. Georgia could win that one by double digits, but that's one to watch because the one advantage Ole Miss has in that game, in my opinion, is the quarterback position.
Another massive SEC matchup on Saturday as well, with Alabama traveling to Death Valley and taking on LSU, and Alabama's been kind of like this Jekyll and Hyde team throughout the course of the season, Thor, but they find themselves in the mix. What's your take on this matchup?
Yeah, so LSU, Garrett Nussmeier is going to have a fabulous game here. And what makes this tough for LSU is Alabama's pass defense is elite. But Nussmeier, I really like Nussmeier. I think he's a first-round quarterback. I think that highly of him as a prospect. But yeah, this is going to have to be his show. They need to win that one through the air, and that is going into the strength of the Alabama defense. That's the key to this matchup. Can Nussmeier solve that pass defense? If he can, Alabama's going to win that one easy. But LSU has that puncher's chance because of the passing game and because of Nussmeier. And this is a fascinating matchup because this is a true loser leaves town game. I mean, this is almost a sort of a playoff game, right? I mean, like the Alabama, I believe in the first CFP rankings that were unveiled, they were the last team in as one of the wild cards. And I think LSU was the second to highest wild card out, so like the second team out. The winner of this game is going to catapult up those rankings and be ranked higher next week in the playoff seeding, whereas the loser, their college football playoff chances have been snuffed out.
We're talking to Thor Nystrom as we're taking a look here at the action. I like this game tomorrow, Missouri and Oklahoma, but we've seen some line movement here with the quarterback injury. Oklahoma at 5-4, Missouri at 6-2. How do you play this one, Thor?
Yeah, Missouri's just been a weird team all season long. I mean, Oklahoma too. It's kind of a tough one to put your finger on, but yeah, with Brady Cook, Nate Noel is also banged up, their running back. But then again, I mean, Oklahoma's been banged up all year. That their receiving corps has been like a legitimate mash unit. There's been games that like they had their top 5 receivers out. So this is one that I am staying as far away from as possible. I like to have action on all the games, but these are just two of the most bizarre teams in the FBS, and they both are dealing with injuries. And we have to see the actives we got out. You mentioned the line movements of the market. There's some people are confident in the market about who is going to play and who is not, but I'm not. For me, I got to wait until kickoff on that and see who's in there. But yeah, pregame, I won't have any action on that one.
Now, if BYU right now in the college football playoff, they would get a bye, right, Thor? I mean, they're having this unbelievable season, undefeated, and now they've got to really prove themselves traveling to Utah to take on the Utes. And I think this is such a compelling matchup here that has ramifications to the postseason. Tell us a little bit about what you think about Utah hosting BYU on Saturday.
Yeah, it definitely is. And this is one, if you're a BYU fan, I think you're biting your fingernails on this. I mean, this is going to be a tougher matchup than it appears on the surface. Obviously, Utah is only 4-4, and they've had the offensive issues all season. But in particular, Utah, it's been the passing because Cam Rising, once again, he's injured for the season. They're having to start a young quarterback. But Utah can run the ball a little bit. I mean, every single year they can run a little bit. The running game this year, not quite as good as in years past, but Micah Bernard, their starting running back, is averaging just a tick over 6 yards a carry. In the way that you attack BYU, it's attacking their run defense. They have a really, really good pass defense. So I would expect Utah to skew even more conservative than usual. And Utah has this solid defense. And BYU, I've appreciated the way they played this year, and they're solid in every phase, and they're very well coached. So it's like they're greater than the sum of their parts. But you have to say they don't have any star power on offense, and Utah's defense is legitimate. They're going to come after you, get after the quarterback. They're solid against the run. They're really good against the pass. So this one is going to be nip and tuck. I expect this one to go late into the fourth quarter, and Utah having the home field advantage in this one. This is not one that I would carve in stone as a BYU win in advance.
Yeah, interesting. Thor Nystrom, our guest here, MB Fantasy Life. We're going to be paying attention to one of these games in the late afternoon window tomorrow on CBS, Michigan and Indiana. And Thor, because the Bills are playing the Colts this week, we're talking to a Colts guest, and the fans there for the Colts are kind of, they're paying more attention to college football in Indiana these days with Notre Dame in the top 10. And here you have this Indiana team taking on Michigan. Set us up for this one tomorrow because, my gosh, if you weren't a believer in the Hoosiers, what if they went to 10-0, Thor?
Yeah, Kirk Cignetti, obviously this is the story of the season so far, and it reminds me so much of when I was an undergrad at Kansas and Mark Mangino turned around that moribund Jayhawks program. In my last year there, they ended up going to the Orange Bowl and beating Virginia Tech. And we have an immediate turnaround here with Cignetti. And people might be surprised. Cignetti overturned the entire roster. He didn't get as much criticism for that as Deion Sanders did, but I mean, he basically did the same thing. And then what Cignetti's special skill is, it's both the scouting of the players, but in the game weeks, I don't know if there is a better coach at grinding the film and then coming up with opponent-specific game plans. Can Indiana be beat? For sure, but it's going to have to be by a team that has more firepower than them. Michigan has the one-handed offense. They can't throw the ball whatsoever, so you load up on their run game. And Michigan's defense has had some injuries, maybe not quite as good as we thought they could be heading into this season. Indiana should be able to – they're not going to go off against that Michigan defense on offense, but they're going to score enough points here because I think the undersold story is Indiana's – everybody knows their offense has gotten a lot better. So has their defense. If you look at SP+, the offense is 14th SP+, the defense is 18th. which is pretty stunning turnaround in and of itself. They're also 12th in special teams, SP+. So you want to talk about a team that is rock solid in every single phase. Michigan is in trouble here, for sure.
Hey, Thor, mentioned the projections for the college football playoff bracket. Did you have any issues with any placement from what we saw earlier this week?
I actually didn't. So I have a system that projects the college football playoff field, and I was curious how that would do, just because we hadn't seen an unveiling of the 12-team field before. I actually got all 12 of the teams. We'll see if that's the case going forward. Some of the seeding was just slightly different. For instance, I had Miami in the number 2 slot and Georgia 3. The committee had that thing flipped around. But I think they did a really good job, to be honest. Like, in the moment that we're in for the first one that they unveiled, it was pretty much just hitting the ball down the fairway. There was nothing crazy in there. So I think they did a really good job with it, and it gets you even more excited for that first 12-team playoff we're going to see here in starting in a month and a half or so.
Thor, it's never too soon to start talking about the NFL draft, and to me, it doesn't seem like, or at least from what I read, what I hear, the quarterbacks that are coming out, is there a clear-cut number one? How many guys do you think could actually help a franchise in 2025?
I can't say clear-cut. Shadir Sanders is going to be my QB1. He has been, and he will be. But Cam Ward, who's my quarterback too, some people are going to rank him 1, and I'm not going to argue too hard against that. The improvement that Cam Ward has had this year, coming from Washington State, it's been incredible. Like, his big-time throw rate is way up. His ADOT is way up. His yards per attempt is way up. And despite that, he has cut his turnover-worthy play rate significantly. So he is being more aggressive and more successful with that, despite not putting the ball up for grabs as much. So it's a pretty incredible dichotomy. His pocket awareness has gotten so much better. He's so calm in the pocket, and he's always been able to put the ball on the string and throw from multiple angles. So he will be in contention. But yeah, for me, it's Shadir, then Cam Ward, and Garrett Nussmeier is my third quarterback. Like I mentioned before, I think he's a legitimate first-round prospect. This is a big game for him this coming weekend against Alabama. So there's still time here, of course, but he would be my 3. And on the other side of that game, Jalen Milroe, he's my 4. Milroe is the boomer bust guy. If he's in this April's draft, it's really interesting because he has all the physical tools, but there's still rawness there. He can throw the ball a mile. He's the fabulous athlete. He always has the defense on its heels, and what is he going to do? And he can tuck and run and steal 20 yards really easily. But the one thing that he has struggled with throughout that he needs to improve on, it's the timing passes, the intermediate stuff, the throwing with anticipation on some of those timing routes. That's the stuff that still isn't quite there yet, and that's a skill where in the NFL it gets leveraged quite a bit. So he's the one where you're still sort of on the line with it. But for me, those are the 4 guys that would be in that first-round discussion right now. People love Carson Beck coming into the year, and some people still do. I'm significantly lower on Carson Beck, and I'm also lower on Quinn Ewers. I was hoping for better for Ewers. The Michigan game, it's like that looks like a first-round pick, but since then it hasn't been quite as good. Of course, he got banged up, but yeah, there's been some struggles there. So Quinn Ewers, that's one to watch this offseason, because if he doesn't feel he's going to go in the first round, and right now I don't think he would, he probably would want to go back to school. It's just Arch Manning and him will not be on the same roster next year. That's not viable. And I think Texas is going to go with Arch Manning. So I think Quinn Ewers could be the big offseason transfer portal acquisition if that's what ends up happening.
I've got a big smile on my face, Thor, because you're going exactly where I wanted to go as we kind of transition from college to draft to pro. The Saints fired their head coach this week. And I know that the 2025 draft is more in our focus than 2026. But could you see a scenario where the Saints are so bad next season with a new regime and a new head coach where Arch Manning goes back to the home of Grandpa and he ends up playing for the Saints after playing for a year at Texas?
How cool would that be? And yeah, it's definitely theoretically possible. The Saints maybe should have kept Dennis Allen to improve their chances of getting that first pick in the 2026 draft. But yeah, the Saints are in a grisly position. Like, you look at their books, that they're capped into oblivion. They have the worst cap situation in the NFL, and some of those key players, are getting older, Kamara, et cetera. They are in a bad spot. They can't really add talent, and it is just a badly flawed roster. So yeah, I mean, they for me, you spend next off season trying to clear those books, and I mean, this is an unpopular word in NFL circles. I would tank it next year.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what you're doing trying to chase money on that. This roster as constructed is going nowhere. So yeah, you should be gunning for a high pick in 2026, and Arch Manning is going to be starting next year, whether Quinn Ewers declares or not. So he's in play for it for sure.
Thor, last one from me, and we're going to have a lot of coaching changes here, certainly at the end of the year. What happens at Florida State? I don't think we've had anything like this in our lifetime with a team, putting up their hand, let us play for the national championship. If they lose to Notre Dame, they're 1-9. Is Norvell safe in Florida State, Thor?
Yeah, it's bad. I can't recall anything like this either, with the wheels falling off like that. And they lost a lot of NFL talent, sure, but it's like they have transfer portal resources, and the fact that they came into this season with the roster that they did, it's pretty inexcusable. I would imagine that Norvell bought himself one more year by the undefeated regular season they had last year. I also wouldn't blame Florida State for pulling the plug on him. The scenario that I want, now this is pie in the sky and unrealistic, and it's assuredly not going to happen. But I would love it for Florida State to fire Norvell and to hire Mr. Coach Prime. Yeah. Bring him home, bring him back to the alma mater of Florida State. I mean, how cool would that be? And all the hype around that, everywhere Deion goes and every time they play, there's a lot of hullabaloo with it. And going to a school like that where you have legitimate resources and you're in a recruiting hotbed as well, you're talking about a guy who's one of the best recruiters in America, no matter what you think about him. I think that would be fascinating. Now, do I think it's going to happen? No. I do expect Norvell to get one more year. But I also would not quibble at all with him getting fired. I mean, what happened this year is utterly inexcusable.
Thor, we've spent a lot of time this week, of course, talking about the Bills traveling to Indianapolis to take on the Colts. And before we let you go, I just wanted to get your take on Anthony Richardson, their handling of Anthony Richardson, the lack of reps that he got not just at Florida but now in the NFL, and what his long-term projection could be as an NFL quarterback.
Yeah, I thought it was an utter disgrace. You take a guy where we talked, in his pre-draft process, it's like this guy has arguably the best physical tools of any quarterback we've ever seen come into the league, but he's crazy, crazy raw. He needs a year, right? Like, and they decided to throw him into the fire right away, which that's fine. He hadn't started as many games in college, even in high school. He didn't start as many games, so there was more of the limited sample there. But so I understood getting him the experience. But in doing that, in making that pick and then that decision, you have to go forward with it. You can't pull the plug on him, and that's essentially what they've done here. It's you bought the ticket, but now you don't want to take the ride when you're in the reality of it. And what I truly don't understand about it, it's like, Colts, you're not a Super Bowl contender. You might not even make the playoffs, but like if you do, like you're making this move to potentially make a run to getting smoked in the first round. Like it just seems like an organization that doesn't have a realistic opinion of itself, and did not go through with what anyone would have suggested was the prudent plan with Anthony Richardson. I'm hoping that they didn't break Anthony Richardson, because those tools are still fascinating. Just the absolute bazooka and the incredible athlete in that huge package. I'm hoping that he hasn't been broken by this, but it's tough. It's starting to look like kind of like a Trey Lance kind of thing on a guy who didn't have as much experience coming in. He had the tools, and he just didn't, through circumstance early on get the experience in order to polish that off. And I don't like the road that this is going down with Anthony Richardson.
Thor Nystrom, tell everybody about Fantasy Life and what you got cooking over there.
Yeah, come and check us out at Fantasy Life. Every week I have my top 10 college football bets on there. You can find my models and my projection system that have updated win totals for the teams throughout. We put those up on Monday for the end of the season. Every single week you can see my projected spreads for every game that is yet to be played. And you have that. And then we have a live show Saturday starting at 10 a.m. Eastern for 90 minutes where we handicap all the big games, give our best player props of the day, and then also answer audience questions. So that's on the Matthew Berry Fantasy Life YouTube channel.
Doing a great job, man. Appreciate the time and keep up the great work. Let's talk again soon.
Always good talking to you, boys.
There he is, the great Thor Nystrom, stopping by the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia, giving us his favorite plays from this weekend in college football.
So much we can go back to, but can we go back to Norvell and Florida State? Because they're 1-9. Tell me what the comp is for this in college football where, hey, here's a team that's a national contender. Oh, my gosh, they're one of the worst teams in the country. How do you not move them off of him and just open up the pathway for Coach Prime to come in?
It's a fascinating storyline to watch, and you wonder if Coach Prime, once Shedeur gets into the NFL, if that's something that he's thinking about, right? Like that's something that he recognizes in
Timing
Colorado.
is perfect.
Yeah, the timing does work out pretty nicely for that. I love that. I love the narrative of the timing of Arch Manning potentially ending up in New Orleans. I think is fantastic. I love that Thor didn't splash any cold water on that idea, the idea that they should tank next year just to ensure that the grandson of Archie Manning is playing in the Superdome. Just great stuff from Thor. Always love catching up with him. He's got strong opinions, too, on what they're done there in Indianapolis. We should talk a little bit more about that when we get to happy hour.
Yeah, gosh. Is there any cause for concern because it's the Colts, and normally talking and taking in a lot of the opinions of Bills fans, everybody gets nervous and jerky about this opponent. I'm not detecting any of that with the Colts here. It's a team, the Colts, that hasn't allowed a team to beat them by double digits this year. They've been all one-score games here. So what is it? Or we have it right here. Don't worry about this one.
Well, I don't think you should worry about this one. If I'm a Colts fan, and after talking to our guy from the Locked On Colts podcast, Jake Arthur, yesterday, I mean, I don't get the sense that they're an organization right now that is 100% aligned, that everybody is moving in the right direction. There may be some factions. There may be some misalignment there between ownership, management, coaching, locker room.
I'm not telling tales out of school. This has been widely reported. Like there was some, like it's on the police report that this was going back to last December with Ursay. It was a drug overdose. So, he's fine now. Everything's fine. But that's where it kind of starts, in my opinion. Like ownership at the top down to this. And it's also a fan base, too, that, okay, are they really going to be the 12th man for the Colts this week?
Disinterested.
Yeah.
They're probably a very disinterested fan base right now. They've got other things that can satiate their craving for quality sports entertainment, including Caitlin Clark, including the Hoosiers, including Notre Dame. So, yeah, I wonder what that environment is going to be like, especially if the Bills get off to an early lead. If they come out with a quick start, what does that look like? We'll dissect more of Sunday's game next during happy hour. We'll give our predictions next during happy hour. We'd love to hear from you next during happy hour as well. If you've got a prediction for Sunday, 585-866-4FAN is our phone number, 866-4326.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with
Welcome back to We the Hobby. You know what time it is? A little something special today. Oh, Nick. Is that a corn? That ain't no corn. What? That's a super corn! Oh, wow!
Visit us at 23 Arlington Street in Rochester.
Wait for the whole game to end to see if you've won. Just look for Friday first in the FanDuel app and find your profit boost. Visit FanDuel.com/Mike to claim your Friday first profit boost. That's FanDuel.com/Mike, M-I-K-E. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NBA. 21 plus and physically present in New York. Opt-in required. Max wager amount applies. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable profit boost tokens. Restrictions apply, including token expiration. See terms for both offers at sportsbook.fanduel.com. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
Our Amerks are And streaming online and in the Odyssey app at The Fan Rochester. The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester, an Odyssey sports station. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Filling a vacancy on the 53 today, the Bills promoting wide receiver Jalen Virgil to the active roster. Well, there's a need at wide receiver. Keon Coleman is out for this game, probably out multiple weeks. This is according to head coach Sean McDermott. Also, Amari Cooper, questionable for Sunday's game in Indianapolis. Deion Dawkins is ready.
We understand what the objective is, and, we're going out there to dogfight. That's where we play best, in a mucky situation.
9 a.m. The pregame coverage begins on Sunday. Bills and Colts here on The Fan. Hockey tonight in the Flower City. The Amherst hosting Hartford. Hearing there's going to be a big crowd on hand tonight. Coverage begins at 7 o'clock here on The Fan. RIT first at 2 at Bentley. Syracuse football tomorrow playing at Boston College. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Bills, Colts, 1 o'clock Sunday live right here.
The Colts, they're not that bad. Also, there's one thing the Bills struggle with, their lack of ability to stop the run, and Jonathan Taylor has been one of the best running backs in the league. Their best defense will be keeping Josh Allen off the field by running the ball and trying to shorten this game.
I see the Bills probably pulling this one out like 24-16.
Mike Danger.
I'm not worried about the Colts.
No.
What?
27-17 Bills. If you want to be considered a contender in the AFC, you can't trip on the Colts. You can't. You just cannot.
Gene Battaglia.
This is a team the Bills can actually run on, and I'm not concerned that this will be the Joe Flacco, oh my gosh, he threw for 300 yards.
Right.
I think you and I are kind of in agreement. It seems like 4 points should be an easy cover for the Buffalo Bills in this game.
95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester.
Welcome to Happy Hour. Welcome to your sports weekend. Thanks for making us a part of it. However you're listening, 95.7 FM, AM 950. The Fan Rochester and the free-to-download Odyssey app. You can watch on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester. Our stream also up on Twitch at The Fan Rochester. Your smart device works too. Just ask it to play 95.7 The Fan, whether you're talking Section 5 football semifinals, whether you're talking the Amherst tonight. Of course, looking forward to Sunday, the Buffalo Bills. Plenty of college action tomorrow, Gino.
Yeah.
Another fantastic weekend of sports ahead of us with the Amherst kicking us off tonight at 7 o'clock from Blue Cross Arena.
Yeah, and we heard that beginning today, they already sold 8,500. You could see a crowd of 9,000 with the
9 times
tonight. Yeah. Word of Life. I guess it's something that a big group there, and they're going to be doing something after the game there. So, hey, welcome to Rochester. Hang out there, and it's also a byproduct of this team's actually really good. They've won 5 in a row tonight, and it's been a minute since they've actually been home.
Absolutely. So we'll have that action for you here. Your proud home of Rochester Americans hockey. If you're not going to Blue Cross Arena, make sure you tune us in, and you'll get all the action here. With Don Stevens, the legendary Hall of Famer, on the call just after 7 on The Fan.
Mossbrooks tomorrow. It's 7 o'clock, or is it 6 o'clock? 6 o'clock at Wilkes-Barre tomorrow.
And, of course, we have head coach Mike Leone of the Rochester Americans every Tuesday here on The Fan Rochester to get a recap of all the action.
The Bills and Colts, Bills favored by 4. What if Amari Cooper can't go? Should we explore that? Like, how could the Colts actually win this game? Keon Coleman's not going to be available, and you hear Sean McDermott talk and the way he couches it. I don't think Coleman plays against the Chiefs. It might be just better let whatever that is heal up. So certainly some mystery surrounding the injury to Keon Coleman. They did not put him on IR, by the way. But I'm trying to think of the ways in which the Bills have this loss, and I can't come up with any other than it's the Bills beating the Bills. And this just seems like a different season here for Buffalo up until this point. Did the Bills beat the Bills when they played down in Houston? Partially. That's really the only time this year. I think the Ravens just wiped them off the map that night.
I was thinking about the difference between this Colts team when you have Anthony Richardson versus Joe Flacco. And I'm wondering if Anthony Richardson being on the sideline for this game actually benefits the Buffalo Bills.
Yes.
Right? Like Joe Flacco, for as much as we have recently seen his resurgence, wouldn't this be a sweet story to tell? Could you imagine and paint a picture in your mind's eye of what it looks like on Sunday when Joe Flacco, who's never shied away from throwing into double coverage, happens to go deep, try to go over the top, and Damar Hamlin snatches an interception just like Flacco snatched his comeback player of the year last year? That would feel like karma. That would feel like NFL justice.
Wait a second. I already see it. Monday's headlines. Damar Hamlin, Defensive Player of the Week. We've got him do a make good here. The AFC Defensive Player of the Week. You're right about this. But particularly, Michael Pittman is not available.
Yeah.
You look at, is this like the worst set of receivers the Bills are going to face this year? That you're getting back Christian Benford. The X factor here, of course, is, okay, Jonathan Taylor's really good. He's the top paid running back in the league. He did a number on the Bills. That was 3 years ago. I don't know. Can't you just focus on that? I mean, okay, hey, Joe, single coverage, go for it, buddy. I know Sean McDermott says, hey, I don't like to blitz. Well, maybe run blitzing or just maybe dropping a safety down. Just might be beneficial this week. Joe Flacco is the quarterback that he doesn't GAF. He's just going to sit back there. He's going to wind up. I think the turnovers will come in this game, Danger. And I'm just kind of surprised at that stat that the Colts were as bad as Richardson has been and as kind of spotty as Flacco can be here. And it's only one game, certainly, but he didn't look good against the Vikings the other night. How have the Colts been in every game this year? I guess it's just the NFL. This is the way.
Well, it's not like their defense a bunch of slappies. I mean, you could see some of the names and be like, oh, okay, well, yeah, DeVorest Buckner can still play. He's healthy. He'll be clogging up things in the middle of that defensive line for the Indianapolis Colts. Secondary is not bad. I think that Josh Allen ultimately has his way against an inferior opponent, and they're playing with a sense of urgency, but also calm simultaneously. Like, even when they get down, you're not really worried about the Bills. Like, it's been a weird season, and maybe it's because it's just been a lot of taking what the defense is giving him, and it hasn't been like the big explosive splash plays. We haven't seen Josh Allen connect on deep balls like we've seen in the past, and I think that's all by design and probably a good thing.
Yeah, it's I listen to a lot of the comments. I read a lot of stuff. Oh my gosh, the Bills play calling, blah blah blah. They've scored 30 points in each of the last 3 games here. You can only kind of attack what the defense is going to give you, and Josh Allen has feasted on that. And if I had to list the reasons, number one on the list is Khalil Shakir. Khalil Shakir, his depth of target is only 2 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. He catches the ball. He knows his way to worm ahead. He's brilliant at that. He's a better version than what the Bills had in Cole Beasley. I think that Khalil Shakir is going to, find his receptions in this game. When Andy Behrens pointed this out, I was not aware, and shame on me. Dalton Kincaid had 10 targets in the Dolphin game?
Right? Very quietly.
Very quietly.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
It's a little concerning, I guess. They didn't know.
Well, Allen has thrown touchdowns to tight ends in 2 consecutive games now with Quentin Morris last week and Kincaid the previous week in Seattle. And I wouldn't be shocked if you see Dalton Kincaid get into the end zone for the Bills here on Sunday when you consider that they are going to be shorthanded at wide receiver. I'm not optimistic that Cooper gives it a go against the Colts. Amari Cooper still dealing with that wrist injury and is questionable. And when you hear the soundbite of Cooper kind of talking about how he feels, and when you hear him mention pain management and fall short of saying, yeah, I want to be out there. You didn't hear that from Amari Cooper. It's like, okay, he's dealing with something, and I wouldn't hold my breath for Amari Cooper to be out there. So what are you left with? Well, you've got Kincaid, and you've got Shakir, and maybe this is a Curtis Samuel game that we haven't seen yet this year, but he's also dealing with his own injury, his own ailment there with his pec injury. So you lean on James Cook. Do you spread the offense out and work horizontally rather than vertically? I'm just not overly concerned going into this game. I don't have the sense that the Bills, who know what's at stake, who know where they are, who know their standings and know, they're standing not just in the division but in the conference. You can't lose to the Colts, man. And you could say, oh, it's a look-ahead spot. Maybe that's why it's only Bills by 4 when you look at the sports books. And they got Kansas City next week. I'm like, I don't think this team is that undisciplined. I think they all buy into what the coach preaches, one game at a time, do your 111th. I think they probably hear such a steady drumbeat of that through the years that they have no choice but to just believe it and echo it and parrot it. And it starts with Josh Allen, and you hear it throughout the rest of the team as well. I have the Bills winning this game on Sunday, 27-10. They cover, and if they get to 30 points, great. But I think this is one of those games where the Chiefs won't be able to keep it within one score.
I got a little cute here, admittedly. I'm picking another 31-10 score, third time overall this season. I would predict that the Bills would do this. 3-score game. Look, again, it's the league. It's weird. This line actually moved in favor of the Colts. The Bills were 4.5. It went down to 4. Maybe that's because of the reacting to the Coleman injury and the Cooper unknown surrounding him. The over-under actually went from 47.5 to 46.5. And I would say this, like, if that's the case, if it's a low-scoring game, okay, fine. The Bills can beat you that way, too. So I don't think this is the year of danger. And maybe this is what will separate this team from teams in the past, because teams in the past – I mean, if you go back to last year, I mean, the Bills were 6-6, exiting Thanksgiving. Was not good with some bad losses. This isn't a good Colts team. You will take care of business. You've got tougher games on the schedule ahead. I don't think the Bills get caught looking at it.
Boy, when you watched last night's game, there was some poor defense on display too, right? Like the fact that you had the Ravens up you had the Bengals up a couple of scores. You give up a long touchdown pass, some bad tackling, some bad angles on the Jamar Chase long touchdown. Yeah. I mean, like, just some shoddy secondary play and shoddy defensive play, but a wildly entertaining game that ends up going in favor of Baltimore, with Cincinnati failing to convert a 2-point attempt with under a minute to go. I mean, I guess my favorite thing from that game is, if you're a fantasy football player, it's the absolute best when you go into the weekend knowing that you're either going to get the win because you started Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, or you're not going to have a chance at competing this weekend in fantasy football because you're going against Jamar Chase or Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson. Your weekend's already ruined if you're a fantasy football player.
I would say you've seen that somebody will win or lose a game thinking otherwise here. There will be some other team, somebody else will pop. For a Thursday night game, that was as good as it gets last night. And where it went into this saying, hey, from the Bills' perspective, you want Baltimore to lose because, let's face it, if the Bills somehow trip up in Indianapolis, both Baltimore and the Ravens are 7-3, even though the Ravens wouldn't be in first place. Okay, you're beginning to see where I'm going with this. But wouldn't it be nice not to have to deal with Cincinnati this postseason?
Yeah.
Like Denver in the post. Come on in, Denver. Have a seat. Oh, welcome in.
It's almost like the Chiefs were probably the winners of last night, right? Like the Chiefs probably looked at that and like, ooh, good. The only quarterback that can beat Patrick Mahomes in the postseason just saw his playoff chances decrease.
Because I think any team with a combo like that, at least they can match it point for point, and maybe they get the ball last. Now, for Cincinnati, they did have the ball last. They kind of got jobbed at the end there. Let's just kind of admit it here.
Yeah.
Can we be better? Do we get to a point, Danger, where they're going to have the eye in the sky look at things like face masks? Like, there's subjective holding calls and PI calls, but things where you could clearly see, hey, or contact to the head for the quarterback.
Cut and dry. Yeah, I mean, there are things that are cut and dry, and especially the contact to the head or the face mask. I mean, if you're really about player safety and protecting the quarterback, and you have these plays occur at critical times, get it right. And this is 2 weeks in a row on Thursday night. Now, you missed the face mask against Darnold and the Rams last Thursday, and this one, it was the 2-point conversion where it clearly looked like Joe Burrow had his face mask tugged on that conversion. So the Ravens topped the Bengals 35-34 in a bonanza of points for fantasy football, and otherwise with the Bengals failing there to convert with 38 seconds left on that 2-point conversion.
Yeah, and so we do get the Bills again. That'll be at 9 a.m. The pregame coverage right after Joe Capagreco. Now, you will not be. We both won't be here on Veterans Day.
Correct.
So that means on Tuesday, and you're going to be in Chicago. I will be in charge. You're going to just have to show me how to do this here. find Bruno Martini?
Oh, it's simple. We have a search function, and you just type in Bruno, and boom, there's all the Bruno Martini that your little heart could desire.
Is it Bruno Martini or Bruno Martino?
Does it matter? Both end in a vowel. Of course it doesn't matter, Gene, because he's Italian. Oh, God, it's spreading to Facebook. My wife was talking about the guy that serviced her car.
Yeah.
And his last name ended in a vowel. Well, of course you're happy with the service you received tonight. Because he's Italian. Yeah, just search Bruno. Have terrible time, Timmy. Search Bruno. You'll find whatever it is you're looking for there.
I think Sunday I might just kind of find it and send you some YouTube. He's got to be on YouTube, right, Bruno?
That's an easy thing to find as well. I'm not going to do it in the middle of.
No, we can't. We can't play the music on a Friday. That would be bad.
That would be
karma.
Bad juju.
That would be bad juju. Right.
Yeah. Speaking of the Colts, one more time. One other note that we haven't mentioned yet. Michael Pittman will be out. Their top weapon in the passing game won't be available to Joe Flacco. So he's out for the Bills. Keon Coleman out he's out against the Bills. Keon Coleman out for the Bills. So a couple of wide receivers ailing. We'll see. We'll wait to see what the status is of Amari Cooper here as we get closer to kickoff on Sunday. And you'll hear kickoff here on the Fan Rochester just after 1 o'clock. And again, our pregame coverage at 9.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing really to fear. A.D. Mitchell hasn't stepped up yet. Josh Downs, Alec Pierce. That's your receiving core for the Colts this week, folks, with 39-year-old Joe Flacco throwing the ball.
A couple of other notes from around the NFL. We knew that CMC was going to give it a go and get back on the field for the Niners. Will Levis has been dealing with a shoulder injury. He's missed the last 3 games. He's set to start for the Titans against the Chargers this weekend. And bringing up the Chargers because it's funny. The NFL is already starting to put out their playoff graphics and in the AFC's playoff graphics. Yeah. All right, you're including everybody except for the Patriots. So everybody has a chance at the playoffs right now, even the crappy 2-win teams. But the Chargers would find themselves in the postseason right now. You'd have 3 teams from the AFC West if the season ended right now in the postseason. And Trevor Lawrence is looking more and more likely like he will not play Sunday against the Vikings.
Yeah, it's right. We're at the time of farting around here. Yeah. Apparently, Jalen Hurts has an injury, like an ankle injury. Nick Sirianni saying he's been dealing with it. Rest has been kind of the thing, but wait a second. This wasn't veterans rest. They just kind of kept him out. Doesn't sound like this is going to keep him out, but it's one of those things that might hinder him, and just keep that in mind.
Well, I'll tell you what it might do. It might get them to consider doing the tush-push a little bit less. I mean, Kansas City won't do it. They will not do it. I mean, it resulted in their quarterback being injured and missing a stretch of time, and they won't do it. It's not in their arsenal.
So we've kind of talked about storylines that kind of put the rest because Josh Allen kind of knows what to do more often than not. But 3rd and 1, those sort of things, we just okay, Allen picked this up here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's automatic. Have they missed on one of them? I don't think they've missed on a single one this season, right? So it's automatic. And maybe Josh is better at protecting himself or he doesn't get as much in the scrum as Hurts does on occasion. But I imagine that's something you have to consider. You're putting your quarterback at risk every time you execute that play.
When Hurts was asked about his limited participation on Wednesday, quote, "I just do what I'm told."
Right.
That sounds like a quarterback that really is behind his head coach, right?
Hates his head coach. Hates his head coach and probably hates the tush push. Probably hates that play. I mean, Jason Kelsey hated that play. Every time they had to execute the play, you'll hear him talking about it like, this is the worst. It's the worst. They hated that play, yet they were so effective at it that they can't help themselves. They have to call it. And with the Bills, it always feels like Allen is a little bit smart. He's not always going to go straight ahead. Whereas with Philly, it almost feels like they always went straight ahead because you just go over the strength of the line, which was Kelsey.
Yeah, like I think Allen sees, all right, what gap do I want to go behind? There we go, boom. Not push it any bit. That was always the Tom Brady way too, right? Brady was just so
might
great
as well.
at that,
yeah. Use that length, get after it, lean forward, just lean forward, and you should get what you need in that first down. So there you go. The table is set for another great weekend of sports action. Thorne Eistrom, who joined us last hour, gave us his thoughts on a few key college football matchups tomorrow. And Andy Behrens from Yahoo Fantasy join us in the 3 o'clock hour and help you set your Week 10 lineup, even if you are discouraged because you're going up against Jamar Chase or a manager who had started Lamar Jackson or Joe Burrow.
Which game are you focused on in college football tomorrow? Because tomorrow, here's how I see my day, Danger, going. We have Fisher against Morrisville tomorrow, so that'll be noon. But it's a home game, so it'll be home.
Good times.
Yeah, and then a little yard work, which means, all right, by the time it gets dark around now, I'm sitting down, cracking a cold one. The post-yard work beer in the fall, there's nothing better than that. Am I watching Georgia Ole Miss tomorrow, or am I flipping on Michigan and Indiana, not knowing really what Indiana is all about at this point?
I'm going to bypass Indiana. And
really?
Yeah, I'm not going to say that I need to see more because they're undefeated and they're a nice story, but like it just still feels to me like, oh, that's just a choke job waiting to happen. I might be completely wrong on that, but I'm just not interested in watching Indiana. If I'm going to watch Big Ten football, I'm going to watch Oregon. I'm going to watch Ohio State. I'm going to watch Michigan or Penn State. No, my schedule, the way I've got it laid out for me tomorrow. Give me Georgia Ole Miss, give me Alabama LSU, and then I'm really intrigued by Utah BYU in the late window.
Yeah.
So that's if I lay out my Saturday, it's probably a dad run in the morning, some yard work, and do I have to bring the snowblower out of the shed? I think I probably do at this point. It might be time. I don't want to do it.
You gotta get
don't
ready,
want to
dude.
do it.
You got to get it ready.
I mean, I was enjoying the Garagio earlier this week.
It's over, dude.
It's
over.
Don't tell me that.
It's over. Well, darkness also was set in. Like, this is the part of the year, like, oh, great, it's 5 o'clock.
I don't
it's
like
dark,
leaving our studios at 6 feeling like I'm at the depths of the Baltic Sea. Like, what? Why is it so dark? It's only 6. I'm going to keep the screens up, though. I'm still at war with leaves in the neighborhood. You know, I don't want those leaves making their way into the garage. Keep the screens up, even though I might not be able to enjoy the screened-in garage. Keep the screens up. Keep the leaves out. They're, like, lined up like a bunch of soldiers, like a war is about to happen, and this is the boundary, and they're not getting past that boundary.
So you haven't used your garage for what it was intended for, like to park your car in the garage?
Couldn't be me.
Jeez.
Not yet. Well, when the snow starts falling, of course, but no, not yet. No. But good weekend ahead with all of the action tonight. Of course, the Amerks tonight. All of the action tomorrow with college football, and then all leading up to Sunday and another full slate of games in the NFL.
Yeah, and you've heard the ads here, too. If you're looking for a place to go, Duffy from the break room will be at the tap room in Chila. I'm going to be over there, too.
Oh, cool.
Bulls and Colts, just have a cold one. It's not. It's a CMF appearance, but I'll be just kind of.
Hey, we're all family.
Yeah, we're all family.
We're all family. We'll hang out now. It's literally family. I don't know that the funny Duffy brother Ryan will be there with Pat, but if he is, that's
the funny Duffy brother. Like, are you implying something there, buddy?
Well, I mean, if anybody listens to the break room on a Friday morning or the sports bar in the afternoon, I think it's become very clear who the funnier of the two brothers is.
I'm not getting anywhere near this.
Pat knows. I mean, he lost all that weight and he ceased being funny.
Dude.
No?
Dude.
Wrong? Okay. Well, Ryan, once again, delivering as Indiana Ryan this morning, and hilarity ensued. So, yes, go hang out with Gino and with Duffy.
That was funny, though, that photo. Yeah.
The guy's out of control. He's out of control. I don't know. I was in tears. I 2 out of the last 3 weeks that I've been in tears because of that dude dressing as Seattle Ryan 2 weeks ago and Indiana Ryan this week and playing the part to perfection. I mean, this guy belongs, but he's just out of central casting. He's unbelievable. Anyways, that's Bill Gray's Tap Room in Chila. Good.
Chila, yep.
Awesome place to watch the game. We highly encourage you to go out. We have a round of shots on the way next.
Who was that team in blue and gold last night? Unbelievable. We'll talk about the Sabres' quick turnaround tomorrow. We will set you up for your college football Saturday. Tonight, Section 5. Yes, absolutely. Serious story out of college basketball. Prominent Division I coach investigated for stalking. That's not a good thing. Oh, and a much lighter note, College Game Day, who will be stopping by tomorrow? Why you might want to tune in.
All right, we're going to check out all of that next with a round of shots. And last call coming up before 6. You can pull up a stool and join us. Have the final say in the sports bar. 585-866-4FAN. 866-4326.
You're listening to the Sports Update.
Bills making a roster move this afternoon. Wide receiver Jalen Virgil filling an open spot. Signed to the 53. Comes up from the practice squad. Bills are going to be shorthanded. Keon Coleman is out for this game, probably out multiple weeks. This is according to head coach Sean McDermott. Amari Cooper, questionable. We'll find out on Sunday. He gives us some context.
Just taking it day by day, getting better as the days go by. Just got to get used to it. It's always frustrating when you're not able to play. I mean, that's what we do.
9 a.m. the pregame coverage begins on the Fan here. We're hockey night tonight in the Flower City. Big crowd, close to 9,000 tickets sold. The Amerks hosting Hartford. Coverage will begin at 7 o'clock. RIT, the first of 2 tonight at Bentley. Syracuse football on the road tomorrow at Boston College. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader. The Fan, Rochester.
Rochester's home for live sports and the best sports talk anywhere. The Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Yeah, I figured it out. They're showing highlights from last night's Thursday night game between the Bengals and Ravens. Baltimore's uniforms looked like a sack of Crown Royal. The Baltimore Crown Royals victorious against the Bengals last night.
It is kind of creepy how that tone of the purple matches the said product you're mentioning.
Yeah.
I didn't mind it.
I thought they were hideous. I didn't like any of it. I actually don't mind the black that they wore when they beat the Bills. I thought that was a pretty good look.
Well, there should be 2 uniforms, one road and one home.
I mean, it's a little ridiculous, but I'm not against them trying out different things. This one didn't feel like a hit to me.
We're going to have, at some point, the Bills going with all red, which I don't like personally.
When is that happening? That hasn't happened yet, huh?
No, I hope it doesn't happen for the Chiefs. I don't want to look like the Chiefs when you're playing the Chiefs, okay?
They've had success blue on blue, right?
They've had success. Maybe that's what will happen, blue on blue against the Chiefs. This week, if anybody was curious, they're going with the white jerseys and the blue pants. Make fun of me. That's actually my favorite combo.
I like that combo as well. Yeah. Well, some hot uniform talk here on the Fan.
Yeah. 4 second-period goals. Chasing Rangers goalie Igor Shesterkin from the game. How dominant were the Sabres are in that period? It was all 4 lines. 11 of the 12 forwards had a point in the second. It would have been 12 of 12 had not a goal by J.J. Peterka been called back because of an offside. 6-1 Buffalo over New York. In that game, all 12 forwards had at least 1 point. Only the second time in franchise history that's happened. The first time being in 1994. Buffalo back home for the early start tomorrow, 1 o'clock against Calgary. You can hear that on 96.5 WCMF.
I'm excited to go to my first Sabres game of the season on Monday. And when you look at how this schedule lays out, and I'm not going to get ahead of ourselves here. That was a very encouraging win, and they've got a couple now, a 2-game, winning streak. This is a decent schedule. This lines up decent for them here to make a little bit of not a run, but you should get 3 of 4 or 4 of 6. Like, you should come out of the other end of this up until Thanksgiving with a favorable outcome here.
Taking a look at college football tomorrow. Ole Miss, kind of a playoff game for if the 16th-ranked Rebels want to make the playoffs. They got to beat number 3 Georgia. 3:30 on ABC. Noon kickoffs tomorrow include number 2 Ohio State against Purdue. Another game where the loser hits the bricks field to it. It's number 11 Alabama against number 15 LSU. That is 7:30 on ABC. Also in that game for the first time since 2015. LSU will have a live Tiger on the sidelines for that game.
It's a great night to be a Tiger.
Dude,
It's a great night to be a Tiger. I'm here with my family.
It wasn't a tiger, but wasn't it a lion that Dan Campbell wanted just to get the kicker?
He just wanted a lion at the facility. I want a live lion on the field for when we practice. Can we get a lion at the facility?
Have the lion behind the kicker. Yeah. Here's a fun fact. If Florida State loses to number 10 Notre Dame tomorrow, the Seminoles will become the first AP top 10 ever to post 9 losses in a season.
9 times.
Yeah, they bring Coach Prime in, please. That's 7:30 tomorrow night on NBC. Syracuse playing at BC tomorrow, noon on CW.
I mean, listen, in my universe, in my reality, this Florida State team won a national title. So I don't know what Norvell is doing, but my phone is it's not dead. You can call me Florida State.
There's only a handful of times that Mike Danger, who we are friends off the air. I kind of pissed him off.
Nah.
I did.
You didn't piss me off. It was just funny. I'm like, oh, this misfit is trying to stir up crap with my brother-in-law, who's a huge Penn State fan and expects everybody in the family to step in line. Like, we're a Penn State family. My niece goes to Penn State. I got to root for Penn State.
I told your brother-in-law that you were playing as Florida State and that you like Florida
College
State.
College football,
yeah. In the not Madden, the EA game.
Yeah.
I didn't know the mushroom the way it did. I'm like, oh, okay. Hey, Section 5 tonight, semifinals. Good luck to everybody heading out. Class AA, 8th-seeded Rush Henrietta. How about the team coached by Montesano there, coming off their victory over Fairport, RH facing UPrep. Other matchup has the longtime rivalry, 2nd-seeded McQuaid against Aquinas. That's interesting. Class A tonight. Brockport is at Canandaigua. The other semi is tomorrow night in Class A when top seed Brighton hosts Monroe. The Sports Bar wishes all the players, coaches, and their families good luck this weekend.
So much fun. And Brockport with an upset. You have RH upsetting Fairport. And like, we shouldn't be surprised. Like, RH, we saw them earlier this year go toe-to-toe with McQuaid and barely lose that game.
Brockport upsetting East was a surprise to me, but Canandaigua is a 3. That's a tough spot for Brockport tonight.
Definitely. But it should be a great night and a great weekend of Section 5 football as well, and can't wait to see what these results are.
Okay, the disclaimer here, folks, follow me here. We're not a political show, right? But there's a sports connection. President-elect Donald Trump naming Susie Wiles his chief of staff today. She's the first woman to hold the position. She's also the daughter of former NFL player and broadcaster Pat Summerall. Danger, look it up. She looks just like him. It's like Pat Summerall came back, and now he's going to be helping out in the White House.
Oh! She looks like female Pat Summerall.
Right.
Good call.
Like, oh, when I saw it, like, yep, that would check out.
Well, I want to hear her speak. Does she have? I want to hear the dulcet tones of.
Like,
I do. I want to hear her call a game. Can we get her in the booth?
Pat Summerall and John Madden.
Oh, the best.
Yeah.
Never better. Nothing better. I was watching the game with my kid last night, and she's like, I like the guy that's doing play-by-play. Who's this? I said, it's Al Michaels. And he might go down as the greatest of all time. Al Michaels is fantastic. And how can you forget some of the memorable calls, the legendary, iconic calls of Al Michaels? But, man, on a Sunday, was there anything better than Summerall and Madden? I don't think there was.
No, with the music and everything else.
It was perfect.
Send it back to, of course, our guy in the studio there. Brent. Florida Gators basketball coach Todd Golden has been accused of sexual harassment and stalking by multiple women. This first reported by the school newspaper. One former Florida student said that Golden stalked her more than 10 times, including once where she posted her location on Insta. She said that Golden sent unsolicited photos of his genitals while on a basketball team.
That's still a thing? People still do that? Or am I just out of touch as an old married guy?
That's the allegation here.
Wow.
Florida went 24-12 last year, made the NCAA tournament.
Well, good luck. Good luck with that.
Yeah. Like what point?
Well, I mean, when does it? Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm not. I'm definitely not a prude. But I've never, ever once thought, hey, this is a good idea. Let me take a picture of my junk and send it to somebody unsolicited.
It's this guy, allegedly, should say that again, that we have to take these dumb trainings for. Like, anybody with a brain would know, don't do something like this. These are the consequences.
I just, yeah. And the trainings are so fun, so enjoyable, just worthwhile and enlightening. Use common sense.
Finally, College game day tomorrow will be at Baton Rouge, right? That's a big matchup. Alabama, LSU. We're just talking about it. And who better to have as the guest game pickers than the first couple of LSU athletics themselves? Jim Niz, Livy Dunn, and her boyfriend Paul Skeens now with the Pittsburgh Pirates. They'll be making the picks tomorrow morning. Skeens, by the way, will become a free agent in the year 2030. The Pittsburgh Pirates aren't going to pay him. They should do the right thing in advance. That's trade Skeens to the Mets right now.
Right, for prospects, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or we'll throw in Harrison Bader or something like that.
Okay, yeah, sure. Makes sense. You know what? I'll throw my team in the hat, too. The Cubs are willing. We're willing to work out a deal for Paul Skeens. You're not going to pay him in 2030, and we will. So let's get things moving here. Stop wasting our time for the next 4 years in Pittsburgh, Skeens, because you're not going to get what you ultimately want, which is a lot of money. You'll get it from another team that will spend. So let's make that trade happen now. It's never going to get better. If you're the Pirates, you're never going to get a haul back in a trade the way you would if you moved on from Skeens.
Is there another mid-sized city like Pittsburgh where, okay, it's been a minute since the Steelers won a Super Bowl, but they're a model of consistency. Mm-hmm. If you're a Steeler fan, you can be like, okay, you know what? Ownership, management, head coach, at least we're doing things the right way. I can be proud of this organization. To the cheapo Pirates, on the other hand. Like, they're just concerned about the margin. Well, at least pretend like you care about the fans and winning every once in a while.
I don't think you have to look very far, actually. You just look west about an hour and you see a pretty significant drop-off in quality of play. Maybe it's getting better. Maybe it's getting better.
Maybe.
We don't have that problem here in Rochester. Literally 5 minutes from where we stand right now. Everybody's getting ready for Amerks and Hartford tonight from Blue Cross Arena. We'll have the action for you with Don Stevens on the call just after 7 o'clock tonight as the Amerks look to make it 6 straight wins.
You were welcome to call us here in happy hour and last call here. But Danger, this was a real call. The guy wasn't goofing, and maybe this came from YouTube. Yeah, do you guys just talk about sports or, do you play music? I mean, this has to be an alternate. This is coming from Twitch or YouTube, right? Like, no, we talk sports here.
Somebody's requesting a song?
Yeah, and I hung up, and I'm like, how did I miss that opportunity? Yeah, what do you want to hear? We'll get that on right next.
I want to hear some Bon Jovi. All right, we got some Bon Jovi for you here on the Fan Rochester. Even though we don't play music, we'll acquiesce to you, sir. You can call us anytime at 866-4326. We'll take requests, and we'll play them next on the Fan. I shouldn't play that.
Can I have one shot at hitting a post? You pick a random song, and I'll see if I can have the beats in my head.
So I pick the song?
You pick the song, and can I hit the post? And I would say I have negative odds on this. I would say it would be plus 200 for me to hit the post.
Okay. All right. Let me think of it.
Oh, you're gonna pick the hardest one.
No. I'm racking my brain here. I'm trying to think. Let's go with. Let me see here. Let's go with the classic.
Okay.
All right.
Ready.
Classic band, classic rock, classic song. I think it's one that everybody knows. Gene Battaglia, the floor is yours.
Welcome back to the Sports Bar. Is coming up at 7 o'clock tonight. It's Don Stevens and Andrew Mossbrook's on the call. The Amerks looking for 6 straight wins as they are ticking up.
Gene? Nope.
I thought there was a whole nother version. Danger, I swear there's another version of that. There's like you did the radio version of that.
Oh, okay. We're making excuses. It's good. We're gonna take a break.
The ref.
We're gonna take a break. You don't get a second chance.
Whoa.
You don't get a second chance. You need to be able to say it in 10 seconds or less, pal.
This is why I can never. You would never let me on one of those stages.
Don't use 15 seconds of words when 10 will do. It's called word economy. Look it up. Last call is next. Don't call us to request songs. That's not what we do here. 866-4326. 585-866-4FAN.
You're listening to the Sports.
Welcome back to We the Hobby. You know what time it is? A little something special today. Oh, Nick. Is that a corn? That ain't no corn. What? That's a super corn! Oh, wow!
Visit us at 23 Arlington Street in Rochester.
On the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
You know, last night, one other thing while I was watching Thursday Night Football, Gino, and I don't know if you're like me, I was never so excited to hear a commercial for Jardiance than I was than last night. No more political ads. The political ads. We can handle the Christmas ads, even though it might feel a little bit early, and we're pro-Thanksgiving here in the sports bar. But, man, watching people with type 2 diabetes dancing around singing about Jardians was a welcome sight to my eyes and my ears.
So how many times do we get Jennifer Hudson this week dancing around with you haven't seen that one yet?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. You'll see this.
It's a Christmas ad?
Yeah, it's for the big box store there, telling you to buy stuff.
All right, yeah, I'll have to keep an eye out for that. I'm sure I'll get it, and
then you'll be saying, "Oh, I wish I had those political ads."
Signs all over my yard or all over my neighborhood for people to string up their Christmas lights, and it's like, okay, we're getting there.
Well, I'm happy to report that I've heard that one Christmas commercial will be coming back, a holiday commercial. But you're gonna have to wait, though. You're going to have to wait for that holiday ad until we get to the appropriate time.
That's right. We don't want to – it's like a fine wine. We don't want to release it too. We don't want to open a good bottle of wine prematurely.
It is the only time here in the history of the sports bar where it would take calls off. Yeah, do you know what time that commercial's coming up again? I'm like,
yeah, you can join us at 866-4326. We had a caller earlier off air ask us if all we do is talk sports or if we actually play music. It's like, no, I don't think we play music. You've never really heard us play music here on the Fan.
Maybe this is where the confusion is, because on YouTube, do we not share the same channel as the break room?
I don't think so, no.
I thought we did.
We have a separate channel.
We do have a separate channel.
Yeah, the Fan Rochester is its own channel.
But I think our show is on the break room channel, is it not?
I don't think so.
Okay, I'm trying to come up with a theory as to why somebody might think we're a music station.
Yeah, other than they're just scanning through the dial and can't believe that Odyssey gave us two idiots a platform for 3 hours every afternoon to talk about sports in the Flower City. Maybe that's what it is. We have Amherst hockey tonight.
We do.
Going for 6 straight. Love this. New head coach Mike Leone will join us on Tuesday at 4:25, and we'll get a recap of not just tonight, but also Scranton Wilkes-Barre. Hell, the last time we talked to him, he was on his way to Cleveland. They won that game on Wednesday night. So I'm sorry, on Tuesday. No, Wednesday. And so, long weekend ahead for a lot of us with Veterans Day falling on Monday. And we get it all kicked off tonight with Amherst hockey just after 7 here on the Sports
Yeah,
Leader.
and if you're going tonight and you're late, you haven't left, just be advised. You might want to leave a few minutes earlier. This is a big crowd tonight. They are saying that it could reach 9,000 at the gate, which on a Friday night, in November, that's fantastic.
It's great. You got a long weekend, and you got the kids home from school on Monday, which allows you a little bit of extra time, a little bit of freedom to have some fun. And why not take in an Amherst game, especially when they're playing the way they're playing right now? You've got some familiar names. You've got some stars that you've seen kind of mature here while in Rochester. The return of Kulik, I think, is significant, and he got on the score sheet Wednesday night as well. So we'll see what Hartford has in store for the Amherst tonight as Rochester hosts the Wolf Pack at 7:05. Don Stevens will have the call here on the Fan Rochester. And, of course, Sunday, I don't want to forget about Saturday, Gino. We've got St. John Fisher football on Saturday. And then we'll have, of course, the Bills on Sunday afternoon with kickoff just after 1 o'clock.
Peter writing in, our favorite tweeter. Bills
our
40,
pollster.
Bills 45, Colts 10?
Blowout.
That's a blowout.
Yeah, that would be a blowout.
That would be, yeah.
I think that would be a shocking, but I wouldn't, it would be a shocking outcome if you're a Colts fan because you've kept every game close this year. But should we really be shocked? I mean, if you want to consider the Bills a Super Bowl contender, you beat bad teams. You handle them the way we saw them handle the Jags, the Titans.
Seahawks.
Who else is in this division? Oh, yeah, that's right. The Colts are also in this AFC South. So we'll see what the outcome is. Now, Monday, we're off. We'll be observing Veterans Day like many of you will as well. Gino returns Tuesday and Wednesday with Terrible Time Timmy. I'll be back in the sports bar come Thursday. So I hope you all have a great weekend. And if it's an extended weekend, enjoy that time. Be as productive as you want. Enjoy the sports action. Man, we got so much great stuff going on this weekend. It's going to be awesome. If you missed Andy Behrens from Yahoo Fantasy, if you missed Thorin Eistrom, our guest this afternoon in the sports bar, you can get those conversations wherever you enjoy your podcasts. We suggest the free-to-download Odyssey app at AUDACY. JR Sport Brief next on the Fan Rochester.